call this meeting to order. This meeting will be audio and video recorded. It's presently being shown on Channel 9 on our cable station. It will be repeated and it will be uploaded to YouTube. Our next meeting is November 13th. It'll be 7 o'clock in this room here. And our meeting after that will be November 20th, and it will be in the Old Town Hall, which means that although it will be recorded, it won't be live. So if you want to see that meeting live, you have to come to the meeting, and we welcome you to come to that meeting. And we'll have a special guest at that meeting, town historian Myrna Santos, who will talk about the Old Town Hall. It will be the 150th anniversary of the opening of the Old Town Hall in November, so I've asked that meeting to be held over there. So
and that's the 20th?
the 20th.
My birthday. Fabulous.
And also, it's Brett's birthday, so we've decided to have
A
bigger
celebration.
rooms. We can hold 100 people, so we can have a celebration.
Gee, maybe we can get him a box of pens.
That's a good idea.
Re-gift it.
Yeah. So could we please all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and please remain standing.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chairman, while we're standing, I will mention the passing of a number of Dayton residents. Lester F. Allen II, Nancy Foster, Molly Thompson, Charles Vi, and Linda Rodriguez. And in their memory, I ask for a moment of silence, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our first agenda item, I had asked that this be put on our agenda, a meeting with the Board of Selectmen in Rehoboth, as well as our board, to discuss the appointment of a moderator for our joint town meeting, which is November 2nd. Just to give you a little bit of history on this, I received an email from the Dayton Rehoboth Regional School Committee, as well as the chairman of the Rehoboth Board of Selectmen, asking us to attend last night's meeting to discuss appointment of a moderator. After I received that email, I also got an email last Friday from the chairman of the Rehoboth Board of Selectmen, Jerry Schwall. I know I call him George, but sometimes I guess his name is Jerry. And he had asked that we attend their meeting this past Monday. It was already too late for us to post the meeting within 48 hours, so I sent him an email and letting him know that, and I told him I would put it on our agenda to see if they could attend our meeting, which would have given us time to post. I have since had a conversation with the chairman of the Rehoboth Board of Selectmen, and they were not able to attend tonight's meeting. He's given us a couple of dates. The first one, he suggested that we meet next Monday, which is not possible because we have a special town meeting on Monday. He suggested perhaps on Tuesday before their special town meeting, but the disadvantage of that is that it won't be recorded. So I think it's important that that meeting be recorded. The other suggestion was that we meet next Wednesday at 4:30 in Rehoboth. I understand that may be a problem.
Yeah, I would be able to attend.
Yes, just so you know that Rehoboth has 5 members on their Board of Selectmen, and we have 3, so chances are they may be picking the moderator, but we will have input. Mrs. Goulart, are you able to attend that meeting? It'll be at 4:30 on Wednesday.
The 30th, yeah, yes, right now I could.
Okay, so I told him I would contact them tomorrow and let them know that we, are you okay with that, Brett? I understand the
they're
difficulty.
gonna, yeah, no, it's fine. They're gonna effectively pick the moderator anyway, so I appreciate them wanting to at least have a discussion. But if they're, just so you know my thoughts and people know my thoughts, since I won't be able to attend, I think I would be perfectly fine with someone like their town moderator, Mr. Q, moderating the 2-town meeting. He was my high school history teacher. He's a fabulous. I love our moderator, Mr. McKeon, but he's a really good moderator, and he's very fair and impartial as well. So I'd be okay with that.
And I've contacted our moderator, asked if he was interested, and he is thinking about it and let me know before that meeting whether or not he'd be interested in doing that. So we will schedule the Board of Selectmen's meeting, a mutual Board of Selectmen meeting. Please post that for Wednesday at 4:30 in the hall that they, where they meet.
Oh, the senior center?
Is that where they meet? I'm not sure.
Yes,
We
the
can
senior
find that out.
center.
And that will be televised, and I'm told that it will be uploaded to YouTube so that people in Dayton will be able to see it. So we'll schedule it for them. They could not meet any later because they were all planning on going to some kind of a fundraiser they're having in Rehoboth. So I understand where they're coming from. So we will make an effort to attend that meeting. Can I really go into the subject? Yeah. So the next agenda item is the appointment of Paul Bourdain as a full-time dispatcher. So we received a letter from Police Chief McDonald. It's my recommendation that the Board of Selectmen appoint Paul Bourdain as a full-time dispatcher. Mr. Bourdain is a good candidate for this position. He is well qualified and has the necessary 9/11 certification to fill the open position immediately. Respectfully submitted, Robert McDonald, Chief of Police. Would you like to address the board, Chief? Thank you.
Good evening, Board.
Hello.
Get you over there. Yeah, the reason I'm here tonight is, I'd like to make a recommendation, which you read already, to the board to put a full-time dispatcher in there and hire 2 part-timers. Recently, we had interviews with my 3 sergeants for dispatch. Also along there was our head dispatcher, Teresa Costa, and she filled in on looking at applications and stuff. So we interviewed a number of people, and there's an opening for the full-time position, and I felt that Paul was the best candidate for this position. Paul was a dispatcher here back in 2013 as a part-time dispatcher. He left to go to a full-time job in Easton. So he was in Easton for about a year, I'd say, 3 years? Okay, I'm a little off. So he was there for a while. This opened up, which was here back in 2013, wanted to come back here. So interviewed him, and I think he's a great candidate. He's got all the credentials for this. He can start Sunday. We already got him in there for Sunday. So I think I make a recommendation that we appoint him as a full-time dispatcher.
Thank you.
Do you live in town?
I do not. I live in Taunton.
Oh, but you know Dayton. Okay.
He does. Also, on a part-time can I bring that up now? Should I wait?
That's under a different.
I know it's under
Please do wait if you don't
Wait?
mind.
Okay.
Like,
All
they're
right.
just gonna take a vote, I assume, or have some discussion, but then, you would have to vote to take that item out of order.
Okay. All right, so I make a recommendation that we appoint Paul Bourdain as a full-time dispatch for the Dayton Police Department.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions?
Would you like to speak to the board? Speak to the townspeople of Dayton, I should say.
Good evening.
Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
I have about six years' experience now, and I feel like I have a good working relationship with most of the police department. There's a few new people, but I feel like I'd be a good asset to the police department.
So you've worked in Dayton before, and you worked in
Easton.
Easton?
Yes.
Any other communities?
No,
Like
I
even
work
as
for
a sub?
two private ambulance companies as well, but
Oh, okay.
Are you impressed with our new police station?
it's a lot nicer than the old one.
Hey, I just want you to know, I saw the old one. I was in awe. Have you been down there? It's completely gutted. It's got steel beams in it, and I said, this will never fall down. A lot of salvage material if they take it down, but it is. That building, not as a police station, but as a storage shed, it's in great shape. Well maintained.
It's, when you took all those rooms,
Yeah,
now it's just open space,
Mhm.
it's big in there.
yeah.
Does the board have any other questions of Mr. Bodine?
No, I'm excited that hopefully the board will approve the appointment and you'll continue your service. It's nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we appoint Mr. Paul Bourdain as a full-time dispatcher.
Second?
Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
So I assume he's got some paperwork he's gotta sign before he
Please
starts.
see Mary, yep,
Is Sunday your first full-time shift?
full-time shift.
Fabulous.
He's been a part-time for a couple months now with us,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, so
Very
he's.
Very familiar with the new stuff.
Well,
Thank you.
congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The other item the chief has is under 8B.
I'll entertain a motion to go to, move that we hear 8B.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Chief.
Okay, like I said, we had interviews. I'm looking to make a recommendation to hire 2 part-timers. We interviewed them. They don't have the class yet of training, but they have to attend that. So what we're looking at is, I'd like to recommend them, and should they not meet the requirements, we would draw them from being a part-time dispatcher. There's training they have to go to. I know there's a 40-hour training they have to go to for a week, and then they have to attend another 2 days of training, and then there's another 3 days of training. So our head dispatcher and Paul Reed, who does 911, is setting those classes up. So we're gonna send them to those classes and get them done, so we can have them on our part-time list.
That's fabulous. So
Yeah,
the
so,
town- The town funds that, chief?
yes, yes. I'm looking at a Nicholas Farah and a Stephanie McGrath. So I'm making a recommendation that we appoint them as a part-time dispatcher to the communications.
With the condition that they have that certification.
Yes, and
In the motion?
in the motion.
Thank you,
So-
chief.
Wait, I'm confused. Don't they have to be appointed to go to these classes, or no?
Yes, they do. They have to be appointed to
So-
attend the classes. But if they don't make the requirements, then they're not, they won't be able to do it, no.
So the
Don't
appointment
include
can't
it,
be
yeah.
conditional on the class? 'cause
No.
You just put a condition that they have to pass.
Pass, yes.
Does the board have any questions?
Oh, who provides the training?
911, it's a place they go to. I'm not sure what Paul sends them.
Middleborough.
Middleborough it used to be in Taunton. I don't even know if it's in Taunton anymore.
Okay, and then they get certified, or there is some reference to,
They get certified in that training, and then they come here and we train them on
our system?
our stuff, yeah.
Okay. Are either of these people from Dayton?
They're from Taunton.
Okay. But I assume they're familiar with Dayton as far as, are they gonna become familiar?
They're gonna come familiar, yeah.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we appoint Nicholas Faria and Stephanie McGrath as part-time 911 dispatchers.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it.
All right, one other thing. We had interviews, like I tell you, for reserves and dispatchers. It was the 3 sergeants and myself. We interviewed a number of people. I would like to make a recommendation to appoint 3 reserves to the reserve list. They are academy trained. The only thing they have to do is, it's like we've always done it this way, they have to pass the PAT, they have to pass a physical, and they have to pass a psych test. Once they pass that, then we can put them on. And what we call it is a conditional employment. So what that means is they have to pass those 3 things, then they can start. So I'm looking here at 3 that I'd like to recommend, if we can recommend them and appoint them as a conditional employment, so we can send them to these things that they have to pass. And then once they pass that, and then they'll start training in-house with Sergeant Cronin.
So are we able to address this tonight since it's not on the agenda?
No, you can discuss it, but you can't take a vote on it, and the chief and I discussed about it, and I had offered up that if you had adequate discussion tonight, if maybe the board would feel comfortable appointing on our meeting before town meeting, on Monday, the 28th,
I see.
Okay,
as a,
I have no issue with that.
that works.
Okay.
What are their names?
The name, is Aaron Swartz,
Uh-huh.
Samantha McGuire, and Justin Jackson. And Justin Jackson right now is a part-time dispatcher with us now.
Wow, I was gonna say, I was like, that.
Yeah, he's been, in interview him, question was asked if he's gonna stay part-time dispatcher, and he said yes, so,
You're in.
yeah.
But
So
you're-
those are the three I'd like to make a recommendation on
You're
because,
saying, excuse me, you're saying reserve. Do you mean police officers?
yes, police
Oh,
officers, yes.
okay.
These three were the ones that had academy trained, and I'm probably gonna come back and recommend some more too.
Okay. More reserve.
More reserves, yes. I'd like to, you know, at least these three, because they already have the academy.
So we'll have something for our meeting on Monday night then with the names and recommendations from the chief.
What time are we gonna meet Monday night?
We normally do like a half hour before town
6:30?
meeting.
I could do that, yeah.
Is that 6:30 okay?
Would you want me there for that? Or should I be, I mean, I can be there, it's not a problem, for that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For this.
you'll have to give us an update on
Okay.
where we are with
And then
this.
just, you'll just grab me a letter like this with their names.
Yes, I have it right here, okay, yes.
Thank
No
you.
problem.
Thank you, chief.
All right, thank you.
You're
Thanks a
welcome.
lot.
Nice seeing you.
The next agenda item is the host community agreement with Tower 3. Who's representing?
Hi, how are you?
Anthony, if you want to hand out some of the handouts. Good evening. My name is Philip Silverman. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Vicente Cedarberg, and we're here on behalf of KCB. Just to clear up if there was any confusion, I think there was another entity called Tower 3, which is another entity that these individuals are involved in, but it's not the entity that's actually would be operating the facility that we're going to talk about. So KCB is seeking to operate a cultivation and product manufacturing facility for the adult use marijuana industry here at 620 Spring Street. And in particular tonight, we're here seeking to enter into a host community agreement with the town. And I know this board is aware of sort of how this works because I think you've been through this before, actually with another company that we represent. But you're probably aware this is the first step in sort of the state licensing process is to get the host community agreement taken care of with the town. So before I go too much further, I'm going to have Michael Kinahan, who's one of the founders of the company, just come up, introduce himself, and introduce the other members of the team. Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Michael Kinahan. I'm an engineer by schooling. I work up in Medford, Mass. I'm one of the 3 founding members of KCB. One of the others is my brother on the end, Anthony Kinahan. He works in finance. He runs a finance department at the Massachusetts Convention Center. The third partner actually is not here. Her name is Kayla Correa. She's an attorney. But we brought along Isaiah, who is doing the construction for us, in case there's any questions on that. Thank you.
So again, just to sort of walk through, what we're doing here. I think the last facility you looked at was sort of a combination of all 3 phases of an adult use facility. You had cultivation, product manufacturing, and retail. This is not retail. There will be no retail sales at this facility. But you will have, in most other respects, it's really the same sort of facility. You have the same kind of security. It's a limited access facility. You don't get in here without going through substantial steps, having to identify yourself, be accompanied by a registered agent. You have all of the cameras, the 360-degree view on the outside of the facility, every room, every door, every window. Anywhere where marijuana is handled or stored, you have a camera. You've got the seed-to-sale tracking system so that every plant is barcoded and you're constantly weighing and inventorying to make sure that there has been no diversion. We've got the dual alarm system. There's a primary system, backup system, which goes to a entirely separate monitoring facility just in case somehow somebody with ill intent has managed to compromise it. The first system, we've got a secure vault. All of the finished product goes into that secured vault. On-site security personnel during business hours, and it's monitored 24/7 also by video. And of course, everybody that works at this facility is background checked. Again, a low-profile operation. It's not big neon signs, anything like that. Any signage would be minimal right near the door, just to let people know they're in the right place if they're coming there. No on-site consumption at the facility. We control odor, and we get into a little bit in the presentation that I handed you, a little bit about the odor control methods. That's been an issue that's been very important to a lot of cities and towns, but the technology is really good in terms of handling those issues. And just sort of in terms of a timeline here for operation, we still have, even after this, we have to go through the state licensing, and we have to get a special permit here in town. So, at a minimum, and I hate telling my clients this, but you're at least 12 months out from where you would see this start up. Maybe we'll get going sooner. But it's in all likelihood you're looking at 12 months and could be a little bit longer. The final thing, and I'm happy to take any questions that you have, but just in terms of talking to the host community agreement itself, it's a little bit different. There are similar things about it. We, again, local hiring, we employ locally, we use local vendors, and, the same sort of coordination with, the police chief and other local boards and officials. Slight difference on the impact fee. Again, you're probably aware that the maximum impact fee chargeable is 3% of gross revenues. Generally, when I've negotiated these with other towns, 3% is sort of reserved for a place that has a retail sale component. That's the most impactful thing you see, because you have customers coming and going. This is less impactful, and so we've done several in a lot of other towns that are substantially lower than 3%. I would have loved that here, but Ms. Aronstein was very good at sort of ensuring that the town could be protected here. And so what the fees are, it's 2% of gross revenues for the first 2 years, and then in years 3, 4, and 5 of the agreement, it's 2% for the first 3.5 million in revenues and 3% above that, which really is beneficial, I think, to everyone. It allows the company to compete. There's a lot of bigger players, with 100,000 square foot facilities that they're going to be competing against, and a lot of them have negotiated lower impact fees than 3%, and I think it allows them to remain competitive with all of those, which is important, and in the end inures to the benefit of the town in ensuring that customers will be buying their product as opposed to others, which generates revenues for the town as well. So that's sort of, just a quick background on what it is, but any questions you have, happy to answer them.
So how much area will you have?
32,000 square feet.
And you mentioned some other towns or cities that you're involved in.
Yeah.
What are they? Have you actually started any of these facilities yet, or are you still in the progress of
We have
process
some facilities up and open. I can tell you, I've got a client that's operating in Holbrook, Massachusetts right now. We have others.
It's just manufacturing and...
That one's just manufacturing. We've got another client. We have about 100 clients in Massachusetts, so they're at all different stages. We have others that are open in retail. I think down in Fairhaven is one example. There are others scheduled to open soon, so they're at all different stages. Quite frankly, I think this one will get up and moving pretty quickly and be in a good position. We're still very early in this industry here. It has not moved as quickly in Massachusetts as it has in other states that have adopted, but that's good news for these guys and for the town, quite frankly, in terms of coming in. They're not behind the 8 ball here. They have time to get up and get moving.
And this is their first experience at something like this?
Yeah, they have what you need to have at the head of the corporation. You need business people. This is a business. In terms of the other expertise, you're able to find that. My firm, we're a national firm that does this. We have people out in Denver, Colorado. Any kind of expertise that they need, we set them up with. So they'll have no problem in terms of the security, the cultivation expertise. Those are not the hardest parts to find. But having that business expertise is kind of crucial. So,
thank you. The board have any questions?
Have you or has your client negotiated a lease with the facility owner for that space?
Where are you guys with that?
A lease or renting or
We have a
purchasing?
letter of intent right now, so where electrical is an issue there, so we've been negotiating that while we're negotiating the lease agreement. So in the next couple of weeks before we submit to the state license, we'll have a lease agreement.
Okay, so all you need from this board to get that,
Is the letter of intent.
okay.
And, I'm sorry, to sign over agreement,
Mhm.
letter of intent to get the lease.
And you had mentioned, or had alluded to, the facility and sort of who would be there. So who would be, the people that had access to the facility would, I assume, since it's not retail, just people who work in the facility, right?
Employees, you know, the state is allowed to have their inspectors come by. Occasionally you get vendors who, you know, may need to help with, you know, fix the computer system, or you have a soil delivery, but it's few and far between in terms of visitors to these types of facilities. They're really pretty locked down, and not a lot of coming and going, quite frankly.
That was it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
On page 8, there's a picture of the east end of the mill building with the, you know, like the sawtooth roof. This is not where the other facility was going to be. The other one was around the back and it had a separate entrance. How will people access this building, and where are you gonna ship from?
Can you guys address that issue?
You said people won't be coming and going, you're gonna ship, they're certainly gonna be coming and going.
We'd be on the second floor, we would have a dedicated loading dock, we'd have our own freight elevator going down.
Where?
We're on the corner,
Are you in the white building with the red top?
we are not.
No, this
We
is just
have
the
a
picture we
flat
found online of the
We're
whole building.
along Spring Street. There is,
See,
Yeah, it's on screen.
the company that came in before that was gonna grow was going to be around the back with a separate driveway. They would enter off of Warner Boulevard. And we were supporting that one if it had gotten off the ground. There was a problem with the actual lease, I guess you'd say. But part of the concern that I heard was from residents. They don't want to see this on Spring Street. That back building, or a back entrance, or a back shipping off of Warner Boulevard was more palatable, quite frankly.
If I could, I hear what you're saying, and maybe if we had, I think that's something that we're gonna certainly need to address when we get to the special permit, if we can address it at that time. But I hear, your concern is the neighbors on Spring Street and what they're gonna see and what they're gonna have to experience. So if we can sort of take what you're saying and to address it.
What is in the back of that building? The building that the other company was going to use for growing?
I don't know everyone that's in there right now, but I do know that they are losing about 200,000 square feet.
Yeah, I know who's in here now. These people are
Okay.
moving out. That's why I wanted to
Yeah.
make sure that was the one.
so their space is potential. Michael, you talked to the.
I
broker
talked
today,
to
right?
Tabor, the broker today, this morning, and we're going to look at the space that they're leaving in the next, we're going either tomorrow or Friday. He's going down tomorrow morning, he's gonna call me, I'm gonna either meet him tomorrow afternoon or Friday morning to try to find a better space that is separated from everybody.
Well, since you don't have this one locked down, because of the input we heard from, at least I heard from the public before, and about not wanting this on Spring Street, if they're gonna show you space in the mill, it would be nice if they showed you that building in the back that you access through Warner Boulevard.
Yep. But didn't the town approve the whole building as a possible, for growing marijuana?
It's zoned,
It's
it's
zoned
commercial.
that way,
Yeah.
yes. So
So-
they have no zoning
And they're not gonna
problem.
put a sign with a marijuana leaf on it in front of the building, so.
Well,
I
the
don't even
signage
think
has to
that's
be
the
approved by
issue.
the
I
It isn't,
I
that's
have
not the
spoke
issue.
to many people who live in that Spring Street, Summer Street area, and the issue that they had was if a retail place came in and then they had people coming in and shopping and going in and out. I never heard any problem with having a cultivation facility that's sort of its own private entity, and the only people who access it are the people who work there.
Employees, right.
Yeah, again, and I,
That's
listen,
because it was in the back. Everything was gonna be in the back, and then, as we know, there was something that caused the agreement to fall through.
I hear what you're saying, and I think,
You planning to have a public meetings to get input from the public?
oh, clearly, we have to, as part of the licensing process, we have to have a community outreach meeting. So, again, I think what we would try to do, hearing what you're saying, is sort of address that issue at the special permit process and at the community outreach. I'm sure we're gonna hear that from people, but hopefully, having heard your concern and having had an opportunity to go talk to the landlord further, we should be able to figure out a solution that keeps everybody happy at that property, so.
Well, I think it's a win-win because you have a lot of unused space there, and with someone coming in, then the owner of that facility gets rent, the business gets money, and then, you know, you're servicing the needs of people in the nearby towns and communities, so I think it's a win-win.
Are there any other questions for this gentleman?
If we approve this host community agreement tonight, are these dollars cast in stone? Because I think that's low.
Clarify that, what do you mean it's low?
Yeah,
You're
which
talking about-
25,000.
Yeah.
Because of what's been going on around us in other communities, I believe that number should be higher. Because other communities are getting higher numbers. I don't have a specific number in mind. I know that's the number we had in another agreement, but that was a couple of years ago.
Well, it's an initial payment that's credited toward
I
the
realize that.
percentage.
I
So,
realize that. I think it's low.
it's right about a lot of places don't even have an initial payment,
Some
but there are some that
communities,
do.
some are as high as 250,000. I'm certainly not looking to go there. All I'm saying is, since we have one,
Yep.
and we've had others ask about it, and all I'm saying is, I think we need to look at the number, because I think that's low.
The reason I supported a higher lump sum payment for One Connection Corporation is because they're coming in and they're gonna be doing retail sales. This is a different type of operation where they're only gonna be doing the cultivation. I think that's reasonable, and as these types of industries become more ubiquitous, I think honestly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the lump sum payment average among communities would seem like it would go down. If they can go somewhere else and pay less in another town that really wants them, then that's what they're gonna do. So I think we have to balance thinking about this amount of money, not as we need more money, but more as we need business. So I think we need to be reasonable about what we're asking, especially for a startup company.
And that same logic applies to 2% versus perhaps 3%. I was leaning towards 3%. Attorney gave a good argument as to why it should be 2% as a startup company. It will eventually, hopefully, when you get to $3.5 million, it's gonna go up to 3%. So they would have to do $1,250,000 just to reach that 25,000, going at 2%. So I'm comfortable with the 25,000. In 14 months after they initially open up, we're gonna balance the money. We're gonna see if it's more money, you're gonna pay us. If it's less money, you're getting credit for it or whatever. So
My only other concern is, why didn't I know about this until tonight? It's the first time I've seen this agreement.
but that was actually given to everybody yesterday. That
No, it
agreement.
wasn't. I'm part of everybody.
It's included in the packet that we all.
I didn't get a packet yesterday. I was in Boston all day today. I'm looking at this for the first
That's
time.
not anyone's fault who's informing you. They can't control when you check your email.
No, wait a minute. This didn't turn up yesterday. This has been around. My question is, why didn't I get it sooner? This was drafted. This has been around. When did you first come in, gentlemen? When was this first put together?
I took care of this and I negotiated the same way I did the other one. I was unaware that you wanted to see it before the meeting, but that's fine if you want to take this under advisement and read it.
I would like to take it under advisement, because there are people who spoke to me who supported, I'll call it, the back building, okay? And I had no problem with the back building myself. If that's where it's going to be, I think it's gonna be, let me say, an easier sell. Concerns about Spring Street and the corner of Spring and Warner Boulevard, yeah, I think there could be some opposition. So I think if you can come up with a egress and exit, because you're going to be shipping, you're going to be bringing in materials and you're going to be shipping out somewhere. So they're going to have questions about traffic. And that Warner Boulevard exit driveway, that was really good, because they didn't come onto Spring Street.
Yeah, we'll go through everything and answer any questions anybody has. We'll have a community outreach meeting where any neighbors, anybody can attend. We have to certified mail everybody within, I forget the number, 500 feet, say, of the building. So everyone will get it, it'll be posted, anyone's allowed to come. We'll answer any questions.
Yeah, again, this is just sort of the first step. We know we're gonna have to
The
we
planning
present
board,
this to the planning board, to the community outreach, et cetera, so.
You even
That's-
go through Board of Health, so there's even
Oh,
another permit
sure.
at the
Yeah.
very end,
Yep.
so.
If you could work with the town administrator, there's already a business that is going through the process and is sort of at the end, so that might help you
That'd be great.
to avoid any potential hiccups.
We will.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think that we should take this under advisement. I had time to read it. I see that you have, done
Highlighted.
highlights, and as have I. I respect Selectman Goulart. I respect her time. I know she's busy. But I'm prepared to act, and I'm happy that, this business wants to call Dayton home.
so just for clarification, we all got, yesterday, we got the packet,
That's our process.
which this
and
was included in the packet.
That's our policy.
That's our policy.
Right, we wanted
so that
at
we
least
stick
24
to it.
hours prior to our meeting to have the packet, and
I take strong exception to this. This is not the typical kind of stuff you put in a packet and give to somebody and think they're gonna read it and digest it, especially since our history is, when the first one was proposed, it was at the plant. It was in the back. Because it was in the back, it looked like it was gonna fly. What happened was something between the plant owners and the business, it didn't fly. Then they talked about a location at the former old Princess House building. That didn't work. The next
That was for
spot was
retail,
down on,
Correct.
at where the plaza. And I really fought that one, because we only have one, at the time, we only had one family restaurant in town. But since then, they have relocated to a properly zoned place on William Street. And that's been okay, okay?
But that's a different
Yeah, that was a
company than
complete- those were
what
two
you're
different-
speaking about, and then
And they were
their
retail.
operation's completely different
No,
than
when it
retail.
started out, it was growing. Mount Hope was growing.
Okay,
But that was
that's,
many, many moons ago.
The
We're talking
bottom,
about one
I want to
connection.
make this very clear right now. I will not vote to support this tonight. I will expect to hear from constituents and people who live in North Dayton. I want to know exactly where you're going to be in that building. My advice is stay away from Spring Street. Your chances of success are better, as far as the neighborhood goes, is if you're you're in the back. It's private, you've got your own coming and going, it's not traffic, people aren't seeing trucks or anything else. Certainly, we want the business in town, no question about it. But I also know the history. But in all honesty, I will state this right now, I don't ever want anything like this, any kind of an agreement brought to me and given me 24 hours and say, read it and be ready to act, simply because this is too important.
But that's not, they didn't, this has had nothing to do with that.
we've actually changed the policy as far as getting notification as to what's gonna be on the agenda. And quite frankly, it was as a result of you bringing something to the meeting that night that none of us saw until that
Correct.
night. I'll entertain a motion.
When was that agenda mailed out last night? I believe it was 6:27 PM.
Yep.
So I have not even had it 24 hours, ladies and gentlemen.
Actually, 6:27 would be 24 hours.
No, I got it was on the table here tonight. And as far as whether or not I have time to look at my mail, I want to state this publicly. Most people know it in this town. I'm the only selectman that has ongoing projects and committee assignments. You can laugh all you want. Neither of you have taken on any of the major projects in this town.
And that's why you couldn't check your
And
email
they've gone
in the
on for
last
years.
24 hours.
Yesterday, I was tied up in meetings most of the day. So
I work and was in meetings too, and I somehow managed to
yeah, but
pull
my
it
work is
together.
for the town. It's
Okay.
not for me personally.
I'll entertain a motion.
Sure, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the host community agreement for the siting of an adult-use marijuana business in the town of Dayton at 620 Spring Street, Dayton, Massachusetts, 02764.
Is there a second? I'll step down and second this motion. Any further discussion? If not,
Is adult use the same as a growing operation?
Yes.
Adult use indicates to me use.
so it's growing for manufacturing for adult use.
so it's growing, it's producing edibles, it's
It's growing, processing,
Yes.
processing,
Shipping.
tinctures, drops, that kind of stuff. Any further discussion on this? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
Opposed.
Abstention? The ayes have it.
Just one thing, Mr. Chairman, they have my name as the chairman, so before we sign.
I
I've
have to
already
change
addressed
it
that with,
and,
Okay.
we'll leave it for signatures and I'll be in
So
touch with
gentlemen,
you.
what I will say to you is, when I get the information I need, and this comes back and you have your public meetings, there's a good chance I'm gonna support it. But based on what I know right now, and what I had from feedback the last time, that's the reason why I'm not voting for this tonight.
We understand, and we're gonna address your concerns.
Thank you.
For any questions and any concerns.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We're happy to have you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, the next agenda item is the appointment of administrative assistant to the Board of Selectmen, Liane Kerwin. Now, I understand she has been interviewed by you too?
Yes, so we went out to, actually, let me get back to someone, and something to grab with you, and then we did not want paper, so I don't have a copy.
Was this the one in the package?
It's in the,
It was, I actually had mailed it separately, but you, I
Oh,
believe, have a
okay.
I think
copy
you
of
have
that.
it in the packet.
Okay.
Hi, this is Liane. Hi, Liane.
Hello.
Hi, Leanne.
So we went out, I'm sorry, do you want Liane first, or?
Why don't you explain how we got
I
to this point?
apologize.
Okay.
So we went out, posted for this position twice, and Liane had applied in the second round for us. And we had 4 interviews, and we were really pleased with Liane, her answers, her municipal experience, her high level of energy, willingness to work and hit the ground running, which is something that Karen and I share very much. And so we think Liane would be a fantastic addition to our team. And I do want to allow Mrs. Brady to weigh in if she feels comfortable, because she'll be working most closely
Sure.
with Liane.
I sat in on the interviews, and I think she's a perfect candidate for the position. We loved her attitude, we loved her willingness to do whatever we need, and she's a good fit. She has a lot of great experience.
I looked at your resume and thought, I can think of a few boards we can use you on.
I did too, actually.
And not being critical of anybody currently on those boards, but I can think of boards we've got that have, some of them have part-time help, and the workload is tough.
Well, I'm impressed with your involvement with the ZBA board.
Yeah.
I was part of the ZBA board for 17 years in town, as well as Brett, not as
Not
long.
17 years.
Not as long. He would have been in junior high school if you go back 17 years. So I'm impressed with the work that you've done, and I also impressed with your resume that you worked for putting forms and stuff like that online and applications and stuff like that. So that's pretty nice to have.
Thank you.
Is there anything you would like to tell us about yourself?
I just want to say thank you for having me here this evening. I'm looking forward to the prospect of being the administrative assistant for all of you. I grew up in Attleboro, still am in Attleboro. My husband of 32 years is with me, and we have 2 kids who are 28 and 23, a son and a daughter. Everything I knew about Dayton was mostly that it was a country, quiet town growing up. Dayton Rehoboth football when my brothers were playing. And so when I was looking at jobs and I came across this one, I said, let me find out more about Dayton. And I went on the website, and right away I saw small town, big heart. And I liked it. I liked it. And I was surprised about the waterway stuff that you have here, that it was big back in the day. I learned a lot more about it just by reading about it, and I'm excited about working here. So I hope you are just as excited to have me work with you.
How big is Franklin, population-wise?
Much bigger than Dayton.
Yeah.
I don't know exact population. I can tell you that it is growing in leaps and bounds, much faster, I think, than they actually want it to. It's kind of taken on a life of its own. I know a lot of the people who have lived there for many, many years come in and tell me all the time that they remember when it was a farm town itself, and now.
Before 495.
Oh my goodness,
Yes.
495.
I remember when 495 was like an abandoned road.
Yeah, not anymore, I'll tell ya.
I long for those days.
Well, now it's very
Driving it every day, I'll tell you, it's not what it used to be, that's for sure.
Well, that's not unique to Franklin, though. All towns, we're growing a little faster than what people would like us to grow. Dr. Z, do you have any questions?
I don't. I was also very impressed. I really trusted the feedback of our town administrator and our executive assistant, Mrs. Brady, because they really are sort of the glue that holds not just this board, but because this board represents the town, really the town. So I was excited that they had recommended you. I do have a sort of comment more for the town administrator and for Mrs. Brady. And I may be getting ahead of ourselves, but before, if the board approves her appointment, before she starts, if we could sort of, you two could brainstorm as to what, and I'm sure you already have done this, brainstorm as to like what you envision the role of the administrative assistant to be, and really carve that out. That would be awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I
I'm
have,
glad to see you have website experience.
Yes, we do, yep.
Nice.
I do have some mixed feelings about this, because I think I'm gonna lose my desk. This happens.
You'll have this big one.
So if there's no other further questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we appoint Liane Kerwin for the position of Executive Assistant to the Board of Selectmen. Excuse me.
Just a question. Do we need to mention the pay rate and
That
or
would
a
be
start date or anything?
That would be great. I think start date is it right after Veterans Day?
It will be, yes,
The
that
12th?
Thursday.
Oh, the Thursday, so
after-
14.
Yes.
Of November?
You wanna start on a Thursday? Why don't we just do the following Monday?
Well, you,
It's up to you.
We'll
The
figure that out,
18th.
but
We don't need to
effective.
put
The
it up.
18th,
Are you
November
available
18th.
the 12th then? Oh, you're not available the
The
12th?
12th
It's
is,
a Tuesday.
is a Tuesday. I'm on vacation,
Okay.
actually.
So the 18th would
We'll
make.
do the Monday,
Uh,
yeah.
And Mrs. Brady, add this at the rate of $24 per hour to begin on Monday, November the 18th.
I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it.
Welcome. We're
Welcome
excited to
to
work
Thank
with
you.
you.
You're gonna
I'm
really love it.
excited. I'm excited
You're
to
gonna
be
love
here.
it.
Thank you.
Great community.
Thank you. I'm sure
We're
I
good
will.
bosses.
Thank you. Thank you.
After the last debate, she's like,
There are 31,000 people.
Oh, wow, I was.
Oh,
really-
wow.
31,000.
31,000.
My goodness.
less work than that
Yeah.
here.
Well, there's 9 council members there, so.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
So the big social event that's coming up will be on the first Sunday in November. It's the Lions Art Festival, and it's at Arujo's Greenhouse on William Street.
Okay.
And there's usually, literally, I think, thousands of people, so they park at
there's 7
Manheim, New
vendors,
England.
yeah.
It's craft, it's vendors, it's music, it's art, it's just so much. But it's a great public event, so.
Thank you. I'm definitely going to look into it.
And you'll hear about our Cow Chip Festival in June.
I was just thinking that maybe they'll ask her to be a judge.
But that's what you were gonna say.
Oh, no, that's too far away.
We don't want to scare her away yet.
This way you can come into
You have
town
some
as a
additional
civilian.
duties coming.
You can be a judge.
Right?
Well, thank you and congratulations.
Thank you. And if you need anything, let us know. You're welcome.
Public input. Is there any public input?
We just got to that?
Just got that, look.
We're on time? Oh, no.
Oh, okay,
I thought
yeah.
we were on time, but we're not.
No public input.
Oh, no, it's not charging.
Town administrators
Hold on, let me-
report.
Good evening.
Thank you, chief.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Chief.
Chief. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, town administrators report, I only have this one item. Part of my contract and evaluation is to complete 4 goals. So number 4, I thought I'd get started. This is relative to monitoring and tracking town assets. So literally anything that we own, we should have in some master database somewhere, which we do. I don't want to frighten anybody, but it's a little bit of an antiquated software, and our auditors have actually suggested that we transfer it into an Excel spreadsheet. So as we do that, I think it's time to also update, and I think you agreed as well. So is why I've been assigned this goal. So I put together 4 steps. It's relying quite heavily on the department heads, but the only way to really tackle this well and do it right is to get the department heads involved and understanding exactly what's part of their department as far as what our assets are. Now, we have a lot of this already. We have all the land. I have specifically, because of insurance purposes, land, buildings, cars. I have them all sort of separate, but this would be compiling everything together and then organizing it by department. I put a value of $500 on here. I started at $250 and then I looked around my own office and I thought it might be a little low. So I don't know how you feel about that value. Certainly open to suggestions, but it would be the list, anything on the list would be in this case, $500 or more. So I have a standing desk, it was $150. It wouldn't be on my list.
So, am I
in this
interrupting?
example.
Am I
No,
interrupting
but
you?
it's fine, it's a fluid conversation.
Yeah, no, so my personal feeling is that it should be lower. I think, for example, this iPad should be on it.
Yeah.
Other equipment should be on it, and that's, I'm sure doesn't cost $500.
No.
So, I know that when I worked for the state, and I agree with you that the department head should be in charge of it, I was, I had to monitor everything that the probation department had. We had an office manager, she dealt with the support staff, and I dealt with the probation officers. But we had computers and printers, and we kept track of that. We didn't keep track of the, stuff like this, pens. I'm not even sure if this could be a town's pen that I take home, and paper clips and stuff like that. But we want something that has some value. So I'm thinking in the line of, and I'd be interested in hearing what others say, $200, $250, somewhere
I'm
along
glad
that
you
line.
said that, Mr. Chairman. That was exactly what I was thinking, but the reason I was thinking it was more like, the laptop that you use for town use, Mr. Chairman, I believe is a Hewlett-Packard, so it's not the most expensive laptop, definitely under 500. I think it was probably like, we got it through a grant, but I think it was probably like $250,000, $300,000. So if, 300, I'm sorry, 250.
What kind of laptop
Boy.
is
Yes,
this?
it was made out of
So you
gold.
know, that was before I became on board here, that they spent this
No,
kind of money on it.
I'm sorry, it was 250.
It's a grant.
Correct, it was through a grant. It was only a couple $100. So if we had chosen 500 as the cutoff, I know why, because you have to track more things if you go lower. So it is a little more work, totally understand that. But we would miss things like laptops, so iPads would usually be under, now they're like
Right.
300, I think, so.
And I'm sorry, I do want to mention this. Part of this is also we would have to purchase it, but it's an inventory tracking system for, we would put on that iPad an asset tag, on the laptops an asset tag. So we would have to look into, I just said WASP here, but that's a name brand. We would have to look into the best price for us. But we would, for cell phones, if you have a town-owned cell phone, a camera, laptops, iPads, any other small devices, and we do have a handful of those out. So we would also be monitoring and if an iPad was under, say one day it becomes under 250, or if we get it refurbished and it's lower, we would still be tracking that because it is a device. So I just want to make that clear.
Okay.
But I started with the 250. I really did because basically larceny. I just sort of used that as a line. So I have no problem going to 250.
My other concern, Mr. Chairman, is because I can't remember the language when we made the goal. I'm not, so it makes sense, obviously, to have the department heads create the inventory list for whatever their department inventory is. My concern is if the language, when we created the goal, is something like it needs to be done and implemented, then
It's
you'd
developed
be,
process,
okay,
right.
because then you'd be at the mercy
Very
of
particular when
people
we write
juggling
these. Yeah,
work
exactly.
and doing this list.
So this actually constitutes the goal, is developing the process. You would vote on this process if you like it, or, make your changes and vote on it then. And then it's done. We just have to implement it, but there's no timeline for implementing other than getting my work done, in a normal.
We should set, if the board does like this process, and I do want to give a big shout out. I know she's not watching, because why would she? But Mrs. Louise, our former town accountant, was really someone who, when I started as a selectman here, had spoke about implementing a process like this, and that's where I think I had wanted to do this. So I really thank her for this, and thank our town administrator for helping us, hopefully if the board approves, developing a process for this. It's a good thing.
Mrs. Goulart, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I understand the change in the dollar value. What I'm thinking of is to try to eliminate some duplication. Is the inventory list that we have right now, I assume it's by department? We could print out and give each department a list and say, conduct an inventory to make sure you have this and add anything to it you've acquired that's not on this list.
So in that vein, what I have is vehicles like that, all set.
So we don't have
But-
small stuff?
Small stuff. Properties are organized just town of Dayton, not so much conservation or town of
Okay.
Dayton.
Okay.
So there's a little work on that. Just going through, I just have to go through it, really. But things like this podium, like in our department, we're gonna have all these chairs, that podium, this would be cable, but like these little things that aren't all compiled together.
I want to go back to your point, though. I know why you asked this, Selectman Goulart. There was a list that I believe Town Accountant Louise had prepared, for example, with like highway, like stuff at the highway garage.
Yes, yeah.
So I'm not sure if she did that just for the highway garage, or if there is a list, there are lists somewhere.
I have a list that's this thick, and it's a printout from that antiquated software that we can't get to somebody brilliant and techie can probably do it, but I don't have the time to invest that. But to transfer it from the antiquated software to Excel and manage it. So I have literally hard copies, I have it printed out. And I can, as we do it, we can put this in order, but I need to verify
Yeah,
it
my
against
thought
current
is,
purchases.
if we have that list, and you're right, remember that, we had to do a, asset inventory review for a couple of departments a few years ago, Brett and I and,
Oh,
Chairman Cronin.
Yeah, Chairman Cronin.
And we got this list, and it was by department, and it did have lower priced items, it wasn't just vehicles. But we were able to go to a couple of departments and say, okay, is the, whatever it was, is that here? Yeah, it's right here. So even if it's just photocopied, so the people have someplace to start, because
Right.
then the data could be updated and put into an
and it's
Excel.
not starting from
Ex-
scratch, right?
Excel spreadsheet. Yeah, it's a place to start. And it also cross off, well, that's not here anymore. And the other thing is, we know we've sold stuff, we've declared it surplus, and we've
So
gotten rid of it.
that's all set, yeah. That's not gonna be a part of me going forward, because that's off our list. It will be off our list, and I have the list of what we sold. So I can take care of that too. It's actually kind of a really great time to do this because of that. We just did this massive clean out. So that works. And I know like the fire chief, I know keeps his own list. I know there are departments that have their own list. It's just
Yeah.
a matter of compiling it together and reconciling it each year going forward with this process.
I actually think, so I have a day off coming up. I would love to try to extract the list, and the reason is because we had, Town Administrator Aaronstein, Town Accountant Louise, and the Finance Committee had been working on last year's budget when we were going through the budget process on like a live Google Sheets document, so it's like Excel where everyone can
Oh,
edit it, or
nice,
you can
yes.
lock it if you don't want anyone to edit it. That would actually be nice to have the inventory be like a living thing, where like, okay, we don't have this anymore, we put that in surplus, it comes off the list, and like everyone can see, everyone has
Yeah.
the same set of information. That might be
That's
a good idea, actually.
The other thing we need to do, once we get our list set up, and we'll have to have the town accountant involved, and that's the depreciation that's gonna have to occur, because
Right.
eventually these things are gonna drop off. We'll still have them, but they won't have the value.
The other thing is, she had asset numbers with everything. So I have to go through and figure out what the last asset number is and pick it up from there. So we have information to piece together, but I think a Google Doc would be great because
That would. It would just
somebody
be so
else might have
easy.
that last asset number that I don't know.
But
Like
if
if I have like,
you're gonna tag them, the tags will have numbers. That'll be the new asset.
Like a
that would be
SKU,
new,
right?
Yeah.
right, that would be going forward.
yeah.
And I haven't been able to price that out adequately enough to report on it, but I'd like to put it on mostly electronics or like really specialized items. But, I mean, it's
But
gonna be
you-
hard to steal that, you know, you can't walk out with that very inconspicuously.
True.
So,
But you do have like a, not to belabor the point, I apologize, you have like a paper copy of.
I have a
everything.
paper copy, I have all the properties and, I have all the municipal buildings and in vehicles and like trailers and things like
Okay.
that. So I have a starting.
So we're not starting from scratch. Okay, that's
All
good.
all I can remember is, it was a long, Brett was new to the board, so that would have been 16.
Yep.
Well, I'd love
All
to
I
pick
know
your brain
is
about it
The
because,
day when we decided to do this, the lists we worked from were very good,
yeah,
so,
They were. No, they were really good.
great.
But
Okay.
no one, I feel like it was too much, like, there was no system where everyone could keep track of everything. So like, I recall when we did that review, there were things that like weren't on the list at all. And they were just old and the list was not updated
Right,
and, you
and
know.
that's why I wanna do it annually, because, and then when we do our surplus, when you guys are voting, or not you guys, I apologize, when you are voting, an item surplus, it's easy enough for us to just cross that off, or put in a column, voted surplus on, October 23rd, 2019,
Okay,
so,
so we'll
Okay.
route back on the extraction bit.
yeah.
Okay.
So you want us to vote on this?
Sure, do you feel comfortable voting on it? Cause, what did we
Well,
change? We
voted on the
changed
goal
the,
already.
yeah, we changed the value.
Do we agree
there
on
anything-
250?
I was
Selectman Goulart?
yeah, it's fine with me.
I was thinking more 200, but
Okay, no, that's fine. And then I think this is the type of thing where if you come back to us and you say, it's just not manageable to track everything, maybe we could think about, you know what I mean?
Sure.
But still keeping track of the electronics and all the
Yeah.
other.
It's
You
just a
know-
massive
other things.
undertaking at the
With
beginning.
the, with the
then it's easy.
$200
Price tag.
value, minimum value, they're gonna drop off quickly, so we're not gonna have a lot of those little
Yeah.
items.
Yep.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the process for monitoring and tracking town assets with the amendment of, under section .1, the value over $200.
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Thank
Good
you very
work.
much.
Thank you. Also, this may morph because I did speak with Chris LaViolette about this, and he has a spreadsheet he's used in another community. So, again,
Oh, cool.
we're not starting totally from scratch. We just have to Daytonize it. That's what I call it, yeah.
And then maybe decide if it's not, like, even if it's a living document, I apologize, Mr. Chairman, I know we want to move on. Maybe like who's gonna be the master person
Could you
that
see the
keeps
look on my
track of
face
that?
when you're looking that way? I wanted to
You
move
I
can,
on.
you
know
can just
you.
feel it, right?
So the next agenda
Thank you.
item is on the old business, the second reading of the personal record policy. We read it at our last meeting. This is the second reading. We're not actually going to read it, but this is what we call our second reading. Are there any questions or concerns?
The
since last-
changes were made,
I was
Madam
just gonna say
Administrator?
that, my only comment is that we did make the changes you discussed last time. The draft is up on the website if anyone wants to read it. And, if you have comments, just email them over and I share them for the next meeting. Other than that, it will be, we anticipate to approve this on November 13th, which is our next meeting, and at which time it will go into effect.
Yeah, these policies, just for folks who may not know, under the Board of Selectmen's webpage on the Town of Dayton website, there is a policies subpage. We have all the policies we've approved on that page, and we also have drafts of the policies that we've read once, but have not yet been approved from the 3 readings. So if you want to read them, check them out.
So we'll have these for our next meeting for approval, right?
So we also have the second reading for the tobacco and smoke-free workplace policy. And
Same thing, there was very few edits, but they've been made, also updated on that website and available for you to read.
Thank you.
And I think it was addressed at the last meeting. We're going to have a sheet that everybody who gets this is going to sign.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry,
that's
as a,
gonna be-
yeah.
yeah.
mhm.
That can just be
It's
a
an
separate-
acknowledgement
Yeah.
form, and we stick those in the personnel files.
Yeah. Thank you. Under new business, the appointment of Christopher Laviolette as town accountant. I know, Dr. Z, you weren't present during, when we had an opportunity to interview him. We addressed all your concerns, I think, and I don't know if you had an opportunity to see the meeting itself. Are there any-
Okay.
are there
No,
any-
I didn't have any concerns. I think you both did a good job of asking questions that I also had. I think Mr. Laviolette was he's very professional, he's very competent, and I think if the board appoints him as our new permanent town accountant, that he would do a lot of good for the town, and I think he would carry on a lot of the solid work that our previous town accountant had started, like the certification of free cash and such. So I think he'd be a great addition.
I'll entertain a motion then.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, since we're appointing a lot of people tonight, that we appoint Chris Laviolette as town accountant.
Is there a second?
Oh,
Do
so
we need
you
to
want
put
to
a
say
date?
the salary and the start date?
And
Like
a
we
salary.
did for,
You can do that, or you can ratify the contract that you had
Ratify the
voted
contract.
on in executive session.
Can we do that in
How
a
about
separate
that?
vote?
Yes.
Okay. But what is this, because I can't remember when
it's
his interim.
80,000.
I remember the salary, but when does his interim contract end? Does he
It would
need to see
end
that out?
today,
Okay,
as if you appointed
Mhm.
him as a full-time. I asked him when his anticipated start day is, if everything went favorable, and he said Monday, which all of us are thrilled about. So
fabulous.
it would end, and then he'd be our
What
full-time.
is the date on Monday? Because I can't remember anything.
It's the
Monday
28th.
is
We have
the
a special
28th.
town
Oh,
meeting
that's
that
right,
day.
yes, I will be there.
Just-
And we have a
I think it's the
pre-meeting that day
23rd,
too
so
now,
the appointment
so.
is the 23rd.
Okay,
That's the
perfect.
Yeah,
date of the
we'll appoint-
contract.
So I'm going to add to my motion, if it's okay, Mr. Chairman, at a salary of 80,000 per year, and a start date of today, October 23rd, 2019.
No, don't do that, because he's coming in tomorrow as the interim, so,
Do the 28th.
do the 28th.
28th.
So
October
he can be
28th,
appointed
29th.
tonight with a effective date.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it.
Excellent work.
Thank you.
Excellent work.
And-
Recruiting a town accountant. You did it.
I'm thrilled that there is a person for this job.
Should we ratify the contract?
Yes, please,
Okay.
and town council did review, and we are good to go on that.
I'll entertain a motion.
Nobody had any?
Nope,
Okay.
I went through it
Yep.
myself and
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the employment agreement for, between the town of Dayton and Christopher Laviolette
Second.
as
Is there a
prepared.
second?
Discussion, so did town council approve the F clause on determination?
Yes,
Who actually approved it?
David Gay.
Yeah, I saw that was part of the agreement.
Yes, and they actually said, if I recall from your email, Madam Administrator, that it was sort of a benefit to the town.
He
having
said that it
language.
can help us avoid litigation,
Mhm.
which is always
I
great.
like that sentence.
Yes.
See that.
It's a sentence we want to see.
And it really only comes into play if you were to terminate him without just cause.
And
His
we will.
letter was a little bit confusing to me, so I called and clarified, and he said, no, it only comes into play if you terminated without just cause. You'll never terminate without just cause, because that's not what we do here, so.
Was there a motion already made and seconded?
Yeah, second, yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it.
Thank you very much.
Discussion, next item on the new business, discussion of joint meeting with Rehoboth Board of Selectmen. So, I received a letter, I think it's all in your packet,
Mhm.
from the Board of Selectmen, and as a result of a request from Dr. Z, that we resume joint meetings with the Rehoboth Board of Selectmen. We reached out to them, and they've sent us a letter back, and they're available to meet November 18th and November 25th. I'm just wondering, since we're meeting next week, if we ought to just hold off on this meeting and let this whole two-town thing go through and then schedule something after that.
Well, I
Yeah, well-
actually think, and usually, I agree with you on these things, Mr. Chairman, but I think that regardless of the outcome of the two-town meeting, it might be good to accept one of these dates so that we can solidify a meeting no matter what the outcome is, because we will have to, whether, the budget's fully funded for the school or not, we're still gonna have to speak to them, and we still have some things that we should iron out with them going forward, so I think that we should pick one of the two dates, and me personally, I'm free either.
I agree we ought to meet one of those two dates, because we do it in the month that the taxes are due. So if we don't do it then, we're gonna be into December, so it won't be a quarterly thing. But the other thing we said in that letter was that, the boards of selectmen are not gonna get into discussion per se of the situation in the school department. That's something for the school committee to work on and resolve, and we're more interested, I think, in, looking at things that are more beneficial to us as towns, neighbors, so forth and so on. And they responded to that, so, what I'm thinking of is, well, I don't have a preference for either one's fine. If we go with the 18th and if for some reason we have to change it, we still have the 25th, that's my only thought.
I like that. Are you okay with that, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, I'm okay with that. I assume that this is gonna be in Rehoboth, and I would just suggest that our next meeting be here.
Yeah.
in
Oh,
good
yes,
time.
that's what we do, we switch back and
One
forth.
first in 2020.
So that would be what, February?
February,
February.
when our taxes are due.
Maybe I would like to make a suggestion for the board. For this meeting, it might be nice, so we're not kind of just like showing up, like what are we gonna talk about? Maybe we could think about some local issues, obviously not school related, but some things that we can sort of put our heads together on, that might be good.
Well, we talked about, just initially, just throwing things around, we talked about Route 44
Yeah,
and development of,
I'd love to talk
The-
about that.
because of the business zoning out there, and maybe something along those lines.
Like
But
yeah,
yeah.
agriculture related, maybe something.
I-
We are both right to farm communities, so.
Yes, and, let me think, both green, no, excuse me, both, what are they working on? Rehoboth is working on green communities, I believe.
They are, yeah, they
Yeah.
are. We could talk to them
So we
about
can
that.
talk to them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right to farm. They got CCC, yes, that's what it was. That was the other thing they had.
Well, I think that sounds good. Those 4 things right there.
I
We could
wonder-
have a whole
And I wonder
meeting
if they have
about.
an agricultural commission.
Oh, they definitely, they've had one before.
Oh,
we
is that
did.
right?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
all right.
They were a lot, they became a right to farm community a lot earlier
Yeah.
than we did.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we contact the Rehoboth Board of Selectmen and offer Monday, November the 18th, at 7 PM at the Senior Center on Bay State Road as the joint meeting date.
I'll second that.
Second. I noticed there was someone interested in the audience and commenting on this, so before we,
I asked this only on the difference, is the joint meeting a public meeting?
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
yes.
And it's,
Yeah.
anybody, you don't
Anybody
have
can
to
go.
be a
It's
resident,
public.
anybody.
In Boston.
Anybody.
It's public.
And the good thing is, this is the first item on the agenda for the most part.
Yeah,
That
they're pretty
way-
good about.
You don't have to stay if there's something come out you want to hear about, but yeah, we're pretty much at the beginning.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it, so we'll let them know that we're gonna be there on November 18th.
Sounds good. Good work.
The next agenda item is the vote on the resignation of a member of the Dayton Historical Commission, Myrna Santos. I'll read part of the letter, but I'm not gonna read the whole letter. Dear board members, after much thought and with deep regret, I have decided to resign from the Dayton Historical Commission effective October 31st, 2019. Family and personal considerations must now take precedence in my life for a time. For clarification, I am not resigning as town historian. I wish the commission well and success in its endeavors. I will be happy to assist from my position as town historian as I am able. Please feel free to call on me. And it's signed Myrna Santos. So since I'm a member of the Historic Commission, I won't be voting on this, but I regret that she's leaving our Historic Commission. She's been a member, I would say, going back to 2012, if not earlier. So she's one of our senior members on the Historic Commission.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept with regret and thanks for her service the resignation of Myrna Santos from the Dayton Historical Commission.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, the abstention, the ayes have it.
Thank you, Mrs. Santos.
Thank you. So the next agenda item is to discuss request for, to review an announcement of notice of proposed acquisition from the Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources. So we haven't posted this yet, this notice?
No,
for this-
so what this is, I'll just start there. So when we voted at town meeting to approve the agricultural preservation restriction through CPC funds, it kicked off a whole process at the state. This is kind of a closing of the loop of that process. So we have to make this announcement today. Then we have to determine if we want to, well, you're gonna read it into the record. You make the announcement, you read it into the record, we send the certificate that we did that, we'll also post it, and then you'll have to determine tonight if you want to keep the 120 days or waive it down to 60, which is your right to do so.
What, can you explain in layman's terms?
I know, I'm sorry. I hope that was,
Can you explain if why one would waive that?
so
What is there a
what is it?
benefit?
So
Yeah.
120-day notice basically is 4 months before any action can be taken. Like closing documents, recording with the registry of fees, payment of the fee, and basically having that restriction in place. So sometimes in a lot of different, it's very similar to taking land out of Chapter 61A. It's the same kind of process. You have 120 days to act on your first right of refusal. So you would just, because things are time sensitive, you want to get things going, there's state funding sometimes involved, and that's budgetary and runs on obviously a ticking clock, you got to use it. So I think it's just to move things along in the process.
So-
And this community voted favorably for this preservation.
Okay.
I honestly don't remember any comment against, but I apologize if I'm forgetting somebody who may have had that.
I don't remember any opposition.
Yeah, me neither, so.
So now we have to hold this public meeting?
No, this is it. This is what you do.
So did we put a notice, though, other than on the agenda? Don't we have
No,
to put
we're
a
gonna
notice?
post that, on our bulletin board or on the front door. You do both. And then it's your prerogative to waive chop the 120-day notice in half.
But
To
what
speed
about
things
number
along.
3?
So that's what the chairman will sign tonight.
That
you
following
did
said
it.
adequate, the hearing public announcement. We don't have to do a hearing and a public announcement, we can just do a public announcement? Is that what you're saying?
And that's what you're doing literally right now, is your public announcement. The chairman, I'm assuming, will read.
So we're not doing a hearing?
Correct.
But
Correct.
why aren't we doing a hearing?
Because it can be a regular selectmen's meeting, and it suffices. If you want to do a hearing, we can put that together, but.
Well, that was my thought, that the beginning of the next selectmen's meeting, if we announce ahead of time, we're gonna have a public meeting and make a public announcement about this. And, I don't think we're gonna have a crowd here. I think we'll probably ask if there's any input and then close it.
I mean, I can respect what you're doing there, that gives like extra notice, but they voted on this at a town meeting, that was 2 weeks of ample notice, then it passed, then it's been a year. Then you gave standard legal notice for this meeting, which this was part of, and we posted the packet. It's just
I
a
think
little
we should
bit
cut it
extra,
to
you can
60,
just,
so. I think the vote was unanimous at town meeting. I get why, because we're looking at the language and it says a hearing, I get it.
oh, I understand that as well, but you
but-
don't have, this is public enough for what they're requiring.
Maybe next time, to allay these concerns, we could put it, I'm okay with doing it at the Board of Selectmen meeting, we have hearings all the time, but maybe doing it as a public hearing on the agenda, like its own item. I think that might be better, like, for going forward. So you could,
Okay.
you could satisfy that requirement.
So it's not, I don't know if I'm kind of beating a dead horse, but it's not a requirement to do that. We did what was required by saying notice of proposed acquisition. That's all that actually is required. This is public enough to fulfill their,
Was this ever an agenda item, other than when we talked about the warrant items? Was it ever a separate item about this board supporting this acquisition. Did we do that separately, or was it part of the warrant review?
I believe it would have been part of the warrant review, but another board would have said how they felt, and that would have been the CPC, because that's the funding that
And they
was
did.
utilized, and they did.
I think Mr. Rhines may have come and spoke about it, but it wasn't something where like the board at that time took like a vote and said, yeah, we probably, to answer your question, Selectman Goulart only, as
And
town
this
administrator
this
said, spoke
probably,
about it with the
I,
warrant
I
articles.
think this may have actually, when Mr. Rhines came and spoke about it, I don't know if I was here or if I had not been here for very long, because they do their hearings in the fall for the annual, so I don't know, it may have taken place prior to my coming on board.
My only
Well, maybe I
concern
shouldn't.
is the signatory is the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, and I'm just wondering, did it appear on a Board of Selectmen's agenda so that at least
Tonight,
our selectmen signing it is covered on paper? I guess that's what
yes.
I want to say.
So you would be, because you're doing it tonight, and he's only signing, he would only sign it after you made the declarations.
And I will mention, this was emailed to everyone, it was posted online. When I say everyone, this was sent to the 600 email subscribers that we have for the town of Dayton. So the information is there.
I guess I'm stuck on the word "the hearing." Is it?
Yeah,
So-
that's my concern.
I can understand that, but it says right out, this can be at a regular, it says select board or city council meeting, or at another public meeting for which standard legal notice was given.
Yeah, but
I
even,
mean, there's really no use
So-
in talking
even
about
on
it.
a
If you
notice,
wanna,
though, we don't say it's a hearing, we say reviewing it.
So that's why I'm saying, would you be comfortable if we put this on the next selectmen's agenda as one of the, right after our opening? We're calling a public meeting together, and this is about this. Is there any public input on this? Like I say, I don't think we're gonna have it.
Right, I
And then
agree,
it's
but
just,
we
it's
gotta,
over and done with, and I don't have a problem with 60 days.
but what are you doing with the input? Who are you giving it to?
the public, anybody can come in
It'll
and
be in the
speak.
minutes.
No, I know they're gonna give the input,
Right.
but what are you gonna do with it?
It'll be
Like
in the
it's-
minutes. There will be a record that we actually had a specific agenda item, and we called for public input. And if there isn't any, we can say there was no public input, and it was moved to and voted to close the hearing. But at least it'll be a separate, we can show we did it. That's my only concern. That's,
I think the word, not to belabor the point, I know you want, you all want to move on, but it clearly says in number 2, because the public is probably not looking at this, a confirmation of notice on this project. We ask that you, 1, post and or publish this notice, check, and hold a public announcement, which is what this is, at which the notice of proposed acquisition is read into the record. Then they reference that again in 3 with hearing/public announcement. So it's like they've added another word, like you can call it whatever. So if you want to delay a week, 2 weeks, a week, 2 weeks, you can. I don't think this is
It's actually gonna be
controversial, so
It's actually gonna be 3 weeks.
I'm happy to vote on this now, because 3 weeks is a while, to change it to 60 days to expedite the process.
I guess I don't mind expediting the process, but I really think we need to have a hearing, because we didn't post the notice. We post something on our agenda, but we didn't actually post this notice. I know that 600 people may have got an email, people can go on our website and stuff, but we didn't actually
but we
post the
have
notice.
over 5,000 registered voters, so 600 getting a notice doesn't really cut it. So if we just, so,
It's fine, we'll just put it on the next agenda. If you want, we can do it,
it's probably not gonna
Do it
take
at town
two
meeting?
minutes. It's probably not even gonna take 2 minutes.
But that's why I just think it's pointless to delay.
Well, my concern is, maybe it's because you and I are we're connected to the state, and all you need is one person to say, we need documentation, would you send us a copy of the notice that you posted indicating you were having a hearing? And if you get somebody that literally sticks to the wording, you got a problem.
So should we read it tonight, though? The notices, how does that work? Do we read it?
honestly, you could read it tonight, and be done, sign the certificate and move on. You can, if you're just gonna read it again, I wouldn't bother reading it tonight. I would just do it all in one shebang. It's my opinion that we fulfilled the obligation. I can understand and appreciate what you're saying. I get it. You know, you don't wanna lose something or do something on a technicality, but we're following this. But if you feel more comfortable, I'm not gonna fight you. I understand that, so.
Well, we're not fighting, but I would feel more comfortable if we have it on the 13th, and I'm okay with the 60 days, so we are expediting it.
Yes, yes,
But
and it's
don't
not
vote
gonna
on the
really
60
affect
days.
anything.
Don't vote on the 60 days until you do that.
Right. we're
Yeah,
gonna-
the whole thing will be,
Right, but
Yeah.
change it to 60 days.
Everybody's voiced their opinion on 60 days or 120. I just wanted everybody to know that I'm okay with the 60.
Yeah, and this
60
won't
days.
negatively affect anything, but I think it will cover all the bases.
I agree, we're just waiting 21 days to vote on this, which is a third of what the reduction is, so I just think it's a little bit loony, but, okay.
Yeah.
We'll move on.
I'm not sure it's lonely, but that's your opinion. The
It's
next,
certainly paralysis.
well, some of us take things literally, and it literally
You
says we
can
have to have a
have-
hearing,
Yeah.
and this is not a hearing, so anyway. The next item is to discuss request for support of sewage notification bill from Massachusetts River Alliance. And I see it, Dr. Z, this was addressed to you, so you feel comfortable speaking on this?
Give me 1 second. Sure, it was just something that I like randomly had received on my town email, so I did forward it to the board and to Town Administrator Aaronstein. This is from the Policy Director of the Massachusetts Rivers Alliance. I could read it. I'll be quick. They are reaching out to us because the Massachusetts Rivers Alliance is in process of connecting with local elected officials to solicit support for a bill that would notify the public about the presence of sewage in local waterways. They hope that we're willing, this board, or the town of Dayton, to sign on to a letter in support of this legislation. This legislation was filed by several state representatives and one state senator. There's no required notification right now for a community or local elected officials when there's a release of sewage into the rivers. This requirement has been implemented in 14 other states, and despite the fact that Massachusetts has approximately 3 billion gallons of sewage spilling into water bodies every year, the state has yet to make this a requirement in Massachusetts. But this bill, H3976, would change that. It would require that sewage system operators issue a public advisory within 2 hours of a sewage discharge and every 8 hours thereafter until the discharge has ended. A final advisory within 2 hours of the conclusion of the discharge, and advisories be made available online, sent via email or text message to subscribed members of the public, submitted to the 2 largest local news organizations, and distributed to local boards of health, municipal officials, and the State Department of Public Health and Mass DEP. There's 80 co-sponsors. So those are sort of the merits of the bill. I did want to present it to the board and gauge whether or not the board would be interested in signing the letter of support in this legislation, and that is done apparently electronically.
I read all the materials. Do you have any questions about this?
What I can tell you is, first of all, this is already part of the illicit discharge detection plan that every community has to file with the EPA and the DEP. I don't ever remember this coming before MMA, which, my committee, the committee I'm on, so that strikes me as being strange. But I don't think the proponents of this realize that there is both a federal and a state requirement already without the legislation. This isn't gonna add anything, let me put it that way. The other thing we have to do is, for example, in the town of Dayton, I shouldn't say this because it'll happen, but in the town of Dayton, the chances of a sewage spill into our river is minimal because everything from Dayton is in a sealed pipeline going to Taunton. So, I suppose the pipeline could leak as it crosses the 3 Mile River. But the fact of the matter is, that section of the MS4 that was sent in, there's a whole section on sewage discharges. And we don't even have to fill that out because we just put the statement in that all of our sewage, public, goes to Taunton. So, and we haven't had any. I'm just looking at this, and again, I'm surprised this hasn't come to MMA. I'm not sure that the people involved understand what's really in the MS4 and what was part of the NOI we had to file.
So does it have a timetable also in the federal laws as far as within 2 hours?
Immediate. Yeah, it's immediate. And it's not only sewage. Illicit discharge could be, if we had a big oil spill, a fuel tank spill. Even if they put fuel in your tank in the house and it overflowed, there has to be notification. So I don't think they understand what's out there at the federal and state level as far as illicit discharges.
I'm not opposed to supporting this. That's what you're seeking.
No, I mean, I literally just forwarded the email. I'm totally aware of the illicit discharge and sort of what is on the books for things like stormwater just in our town alone, so.
Mr. Chairman, if the board's willing, I will make a motion to table this until our next meeting, and I will send an email to the representative from MA on our committee and say to her, Ariella, tell me about this. Tell me what the position is. Is this going to come before our committee? Can you tell me anything about this? Because our board has tabled this until we get some information. And I can report back to you if that's acceptable.
I'll entertain a motion.
All right, so I will make the motion that we table this until the next meeting, and I will contact MMA and find out if they have a position on this or any information they can give me.
Second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions, the ayes have it. So we'll put that on as an agenda item for the next meeting. On the new business, vote on recommendations for special town meeting warrant articles.
You're also reviewing the motions tonight, but really, there's gonna be work done to this tomorrow at the Finance Committee meeting, which starts at 6:30. The town council has reviewed it. The only changes they have for us is that where it says in some of these motions, we sort of have it open because we don't know how the Finance Committee is gonna recommend. So right now it says to be raised and appropriated and or transferred from free cash, so we just have to finalize those after the meeting tomorrow night, which I'm going to attend, so I'll be able to do that, no problem.
Will we have time to vote on Monday night? In other words, we're posted for tomorrow night, and we could vote tomorrow night. But if there are any that are, you know how sometimes the Finance Committee has a meeting right
Yep.
before, and they give us our 2 or 3 recommendations? So we could also
Gonna do
vote
that.
then.
Right, so we're posting that meeting, we post it anyway, just in case,
Right.
because we don't know what's gonna happen, so we post your meeting, you're only gonna do what the chief had asked us to do, and then this, and so you'll be able, there's a safety net there that you'll be able to,
Okay.
so we're all set. But anyway, I guess you'll take it away and make your recommendations.
Okay, I assume that we're okay with Article 1, Article 2. To see if the town will vote to veto.
No, thank you.
Getting ahead of yourself.
Will vote to authorize a total expenditure of $22,000 to be raised and appropriated and/or transferred from available funds to fund fiscal year 20 personal expenses for employees' coverage until the recently settled highway union collective bargaining agreement, or take any action relative thereto. So the town people know that we have determined, or the Department of Revenue has determined that we have $1.3 million in surplus money. It's a little bit extra more than that. Do we know if we approve all of these items, whether I believe we're gonna go over that?
Just looking
because
it
we're
up.
not sure. Some of this is.
Well, if you were gonna pay for everything out of free cash, you would go over it, but there's some things that you just wouldn't pay for out of free cash, like this Article 2, for example, is
Right.
personnel. You always wanna do that out of a recurring revenue source. So that comes out as free cash. So if you, in my list here, I deferred two things. I deferred the road sweeper and I deferred the, trailer to town meeting, annual town meeting, excuse me. So that came out to, if everything else, no, let me be more clear, I apologize. So if the 22,000 that you just talked about for Article 2, that would have been raise and appropriate. The revaluation, I have under raise and appropriate, it's $8,000. The finance committee might disagree, which is obviously fine. Then replenishing the data processing accounts, also raise and appropriate because that's an operating budget expense, and I want to put that on the tax rolls because it's not necessarily going to go away. And then the cable request for the lower level conference room cable equipment would be out of their PEG access fund. The harbor master's request would be out of the waterways fund. So everything else I stuck under free cash in my little thoughts here, with a deferment of the road sweeper and deferring that $6,000 for the trailer. And so mine comes up to $123,710 out of free cash. And it's like $1,345,000. But again, that's fully funding the OPEB request.
Should we act on this tonight, or since we're posted for tomorrow night, as these articles are discussed at the FinCom, that we vote tomorrow night? Because if we vote tonight to do a certain thing, and the FinCom discusses it, and we hear information and what their reasoning is, we're gonna have to vote, and then we agree with what they wanna do, we're gonna have to vote again anyhow. So I'm just wondering if, rather than actually doing this tonight, we do it all tomorrow night since we're posted. When we hear the discussion, we might be able to do a whole bunch of them as a block.
Well, my thought would be that you would be able to give them a recommendation. You could talk to them about
Yeah, we always vote on
like how
it.
you feel about it.
We can give them a recommendation
Yeah.
without voting, because it's still up for discussion.
Okay.
And in all honesty, I don't see the finance committee spending all that free cash. It would be historic. They will never do that because we have to have money held. Yes, you can't spend all of the money, because if something happens after this meeting and the tax rate's set and something comes up and you have to have a town meeting to cover whatever that is. Let's say a roof gets blown off and we need money before the insurance comes through. We've got to have money available. So I don't see them spending all this money.
I don't see them spending all of it either. I want to be clear of that. I don't, I just like to see how much good we can do for and what I mean by that is, like, if our department is requesting it, I want to see how much we could actually provide. But they always lower. They're always lower, the finance committee.
Mr. Pacheco?
Yeah, and these articles on the town meeting, they raise and appropriate all from free cash. Is this all from free cash that you're proposing to spend?
Some of
No.
these are
Some
free cash.
are.
Well, what happens if they raise and appropriate? What does that do to the tax rate?
So actually, that's a really good question. So similar to last year, there's an article on the warrant to pay the police station bond.
Yeah.
And there's a second motion, you'll have it in front of you, that mandates that payment, that amount, be reduced from the tax rate. So at annual town meeting, we put in our payment for the police station bond. And if we didn't take it off the tax rolls in November, when the assessors and the Board of Selectmen put the tax rate together, that would be on there. But with this vote, and I know I talked to Edgeworth, so I know the Finance Committee wants this off the tax rolls. They're going to make this motion. So this removes the $414,925 from what we would raise and appropriate through the tax rate. So that's what happens. So if you raise and appropriate, it goes to the tax rolls. If you pay from free cash, it doesn't. It's kind of like we have this money left over from last year, and growth. And that's not just we overtax. That's growth. That's revenues from building permits and license fees and inspection fees and all sorts of things like that. So it's kind of a balance going back and forth about what the town wants to spend its money on. Question number one. How do we spend it, raise and appropriate, or free cash, and what we can afford?
So there's something other than free cash.
Well, there's borrowing, but this town doesn't do that very much.
No, this
so,
just raise and
yeah.
appropriate. Well, actually, if you we have some accounts that have money in it that is restricted, like the harbor master, so don't even count those. But as far as paying, funding this warrant, we have raise and appropriate, which affects the tax rate, or we have free cash.
Yeah, well, that's, my question is though, is it all gonna be free cash or it's gonna be a mix?
I think most of it's gonna be free
Most
cash.
of it's free cash. But when you have something like Article 2 is to fund an employment contract for the highway department, it's not financially wise to do that through free cash because it's a non-recurring revenue, yeah. So that would be raise and appropriate. We did something similar to the audit because that's a recurring expense that we always pay, so we added that into the budget and that becomes a raise and appropriate.
Now, the 400 for the police station, does that come from the contingency fund or is that coming from?
No, this is our bond payment. This is like, we borrowed the money, we owe
That's
this, we
gonna come
gotta
from
pay
free
it.
cash.
The recommendation will
It's
be
from
free
free
cash.
cash.
Okay.
So at the meeting tomorrow night, if you're available, at 6:30,
That's right.
we're gonna meet with the finance committee, we'll go through all of these articles, we'll tell them what we think, we'll all discuss it, and we'll know going into town meeting which one it's going to be, the source of funding.
I'll show you this too if you want.
I hear what you're saying, and I think that at our annual town meeting, prior to our last meeting, Board of Selectmen's meeting before the annual town meeting, we already had the recommendations from the finance committee, so we were able to change, we actually changed our position on some of them,
Yeah.
and we're now at a disadvantage because of whatever.
How much free cash do you have?
It's 1.3,
Hold on, I just put that away.
I probably have it here somewhere.
1.34 something?
I
Yeah,
did say
that
that,
sounds
1,324,108. 1.3.
So that might be an indication that the budgets are out of whack. That we
No,
should-
we have like massive growth,
In the last 2 years, right?
in the last
We've also
5
had-
years. Yeah,
we've
you're
also had-
growing very fast.
We've also had increases in local receipts, and that's building permits, whatever you pay for when you come in for something. Local receipts is a big number.
But that's actually slowed down. I remember the building commissioner had
Yeah.
come in and said the number of permits has decreased.
Okay.
That makes sense because my first two or 3 years on the board, maybe even before you came, free cash was certified at like 2 million. So this is a lot less. We're getting closer
That means
to,
the budgets are out of whack.
No, well, don't forget, for
No.
2 years, you funded a town administrator but didn't have anybody, so that whole budget was just rolling over. There's lots of different things.
And the
There's lots
building
of different.
thing should go down because
It
the
is.
projects are almost completed. Now, the
That's
next
gonna-
project
it's
is
gonna go up
at
again with the next,
Strawberry Hill, you know?
Oh,
No, I agree with you that, it's 1.3 million plus that we've asked the taxpayers to give to us, and we haven't spent that money. And we've been working, the last annual budget that we worked on, we've actually reduced some of the budgets for different departments because they weren't spending the money, which becomes surplus money at the end of the year. We always want to have surplus money, though. We don't, a little, no, I hear what you're saying, but we always want to have surplus money because we don't want to, we don't
can't
want
be to
to
the
be
penny.
so close. The problem with 1.3 million free cash is everybody's now coming in to spend that money.
Yes.
So we have to be, as a board, be conscious of that and make sure that we're spending that money wisely.
But
Because it
correct-
is taxpayers' money.
I totally agree, Mr. Chairman, but correct me if I'm wrong. We have the $400,000 being applied towards the police station, and then $200,000 or something like that going back into the municipal stabilization account. So in a way,
And $200,000 going into the pension.
OPEB, yeah.
into OPEB. So in a way, more than half of that is going towards either liabilities or to not have your taxes go up as a result of the borrowing for the police station. Well, a lot of I feel like we're getting off track. I
Yes, we are.
apologize. A lot of it is based on your individual home there's a lot of factors into
Values.
what your tax bill will be. We've lowered the tax rate. The first, when I was here in 2016 with Selectmen Goulart, we lowered the tax rate 2 years, and I was still getting emails from residents that said, well, my individual tax bill went up. And it's based on the value of your home, and you want your home to be worth more year after year. You don't want a lower tax bill because your house was devalued. I mean, that's what happened during the stock
Massachusetts
market
is also
crash.
the number one state.
You want the value of your house to go up
Correct.
the day you're selling it. Not before that, so, yes.
But there's some
Well, what
good
about
news.
equity?
Equity, yeah, you want,
Equity,
everyone likes equity.
In FY '20, the year we're in right now, we have 2 large solar farms whose personal property has not hit new growth. Now, they have been valued, and the owners of that personal property will probably appeal them, but they aren't gonna be dropped significantly. And if those come in near where I'm hearing a number, it's gonna be substantial new growth. I can also tell you that something else has happened as far as you have an active stormwater committee. The stormwater permit for the Aggie School construction project, this is brand-new revenue, is in excess of $16,000. It's based on square foot of disturbance. So this is something else that as projects move forward, the stormwater committee is going to be more active in these types of developments. So that's just sort of good news on the horizon, okay?
So I want to bring this back to discussion on the warrants.
Yeah.
Yes, the warrants themselves.
It's like a fireside chat.
Yeah. I'm okay with voting on these tonight and realize that we may be able,
We can change it tomorrow.
We change it tomorrow. I just think it's gonna, would speed up tomorrow night's meeting. I know I plan on attending,
Well,
I believe you're planning on attending.
The other thing is, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
to your point, it's a finance committee meeting, so like, we can't be taking a vote every time we discuss, I mean, it's not.
No, we're gonna be
It's not our
posted.
meeting.
No, but
We've
it's a
no,
joint
we've
meeting.
scheduled
I
as,
get,
I've
I
asked
get
that.
that, but like,
Yeah.
it's not our
So,
meeting.
I'm thinking now the wording should be that we, for example, Mr. Chairman, I move that we vote to recommend $22,000 for the funding, the recently settled highway union collective bargaining agreement, and it be recommended to the finance committee. $22,000 to fund this highway union collective bargaining agreement from, to be funded by raise and appropriated funds. Something like that. Now, we'll
Was that an
vote our
actual motion?
recommendations, and
Was
then
that an
we'll.
actual motion though?
What we've actually, if I remember correctly, we actually, the ones that we disagree with, we didn't vote for, but those that we agree, we said like Article 2, Article 3, Article 4.
Okay, that, yeah,
I think
let's
we're gonna
leave
be
those
in
off till
general-
tomorrow.
Yeah, that's what I said about
Yeah.
blocks, yeah.
So I don't mind doing it in blocks, and
All right,
that's,
that sounds
so
good.
just so that we're on the
Yep.
same page,
Yep.
I feel that Article 6, the $230,000 for the highway department, it's gonna probably be recommended that we don't go forward with that, and I'm also personally don't think we ought to go forward at this meeting. That's something that should come up at the annual town meeting and
I
see if
think
the
we
town.
all agree. Selectman
So-
Goulart, are you okay with that?
Mhm.
Okay, I'm okay with that.
Is there any other items that,
Madam Administrator, was there anything in particular that we had discussed where the board, or just in discussions with other departments, we weren't gonna move ahead with those articles? I thought there was another one other than that one.
For me, for my recommendation
No,
or yours?
No, from just like discussions amongst
Um,
officials in the
I
town
think you're right, and I'm
department
trying to
heads.
figure out which
There
one
was
it
another
was.
article that we
trailer?
weren't.
Is it the utility trailer?
No.
Is it the, I mean, we took off,
Let me look for no motion, cause I believe we had said no one was gonna make a motion. There was something.
the man lift, wide area mower.
Was it the mower? No, what, the, maybe, Mr.
The
Chairman, do
man
you
lift
remember
is for
something about
OSHA
the mower?
compliance.
I'm looking at them now, I don't.
The mower got deferred from the annual, right?
I don't
thought-
know that, no, the truck.
Oh, the truck,
The truck
okay.
was deferred from the annual. The wide area mower is replacement equipment. The man lift is new, and the street sweeper is replacement equipment. Replacement.
But why are we purchasing, oh, okay, no, forget it, I'm sorry, I read that twice. I was like, what, why would we not do two separate?
You also, don't
articles.
have to, to the point of not spending all the free cash, which is a valid one. What's posted on the warrant is what can be the maximum amount appropriated. So the finance committee may very well lower the amount to, just an example, I requested 200,000 be placed into stabilization. They might lower that to 100 or 150 and then free up the 50,000 to pay for the man lift or something.
Well, I'm trying to keep
Yeah,
board discussion?
I'm like losing my train of thought. We're getting off the topic. So are we doing the mower for $50,000 for the highway department and the new 1-ton pickup truck for $47,000 for the highway department?
But the one-ton pickup truck was continued, right, from the annual town meeting, is that what you said?
Correct, but there
but
was
the-
something we were gonna hold, I thought, Mr.
I
Chairman.
know it was a sweeper, I know that. but I-
Definitely that, but there was something else that we were gonna hold. Not just we, our board, but like
Right.
everybody had an understanding that we were not gonna make a motion, so we just
I feel
don't
like it was
remember.
the mower, but I don't know.
I don't remember,
I
but
think
it
it
was
was the
something we
mower.
decided.
Wasn't
think
there
it was the
something with a
mower.
rent or a lease? I'm like.
No, that's the sweeper. The
sweeper.
sweeper has a lease option, but if
Okay.
it's a lease, that goes in operating budgets, because you can't have a.
I'm pretty sure it was the
heavy capital
mower.
expenditure.
So is that a replacement or is that adding to,
The mower, replacement.
What about the 1-ton pickup truck? It was one of the other.
Replacement. If you remember, Mr. Ferry had quite a few, repairs to his fleet last year, and we had to transfer, at town meeting, we transferred money into the.
I know it's
so
an old truck,
yeah,
year-wise
yeah.
meaning.
And then the man lift is for OSHA compliance, which he's been working diligently on.
That's the lift.
It wasn't
Right,
the
that's the
man,
man
it definitely
lift.
wasn't the man
I think it's the
lift.
mower, to be honest.
I think it is too.
But you don't have to decide this tonight. I mean, we can do research and figure that out and look back at old meetings.
Okay, let's star that one.
and figure that out.
Was there anything else, Mr. Chairman, that the board,
There are no
Wasn't in
prior year
consensus
bills,
with?
which is really awesome.
yeah, that was good. So we're not voting on that then,
yeah, let's
The
not
mower.
vote on the mower. Till we figure out that tomorrow.
which item is that? Which,
The mower,
article? Yeah. Okay,
All the
it's,
highway are grouped
16.
together.
It's $50,000,
yeah.
Article 16, so I'm okay with not necessarily recommending that as well as
What was that, Mr. Chairman?
Article
Article
16 and
16.
Article 6 are two that I feel that we should not recommend.
Okay, I'm with you, Mr. Chairman.
Is it not recommend or defer to the annual? I'm sorry, I'm just taking notes.
Let's
I wanna-
defer to annual. I think
Yes,
that's better, Mr.
I may
Chairman.
not be recommending then too, but that's.
Well, yeah,
yes.
you know it. We'll
Yes,
discuss
yes,
it then.
Yes. So I'll entertain a motion then to,
Mr. Chairman, I suggest that we hold, not say no, but hold on the 200,000 for OPEB and the 200,000 for capital stabilization, because I don't believe the finance committee is gonna spend all the money, and they may reduce these amounts, and those are two we can vote on at the meeting when we find out what they're thinking about, when they come up with their end tally.
So you wanna hold that one too?
I wanna hold OPEB and, capital stabilization.
Okay.
Not defer them to somewhere else, just hold them until we meet tomorrow night, that's all I'm saying.
I'm fine with that.
yeah, I'm hoping though that the finance committee does decide either to go with the 200,000 or close to those figures. So
Oh,
I'm-
and-
Agreed,
But,
yeah.
but I
Because
agree,
OPEB is a liability.
it may not be
so-
that figure that we're looking at right now, so.
Right, right.
But what I don't wanna do is take away, put money elsewhere that takes away from being able to put the 200,000
No,
into
the only,
OPEB.
put the money somewhere else would not be putting it, it's having something in reserve, which is what we talked about. Having something available, during the rest of this fiscal year, just in case. Because if
Exactly.
we don't spend it, it just rolls into the next year. But it's a prudent thing to do.
I agree with that. Okay, so 16, what was the other one? Mr.
6
Chairman?
and 16,
And 24 and 25 are your,
24.
holds until tomorrow.
24 and 25.
Mr.
Yes.
Chairman, let me see if this works. I make a motion that we approve the warrant articles as submitted with the exception of Article 6, Article 16, and that we place a hold on Articles 24 and 25.
Second.
Any further discussion?
That was to approve or to recommend?
To recommend
To
all of the
recommend,
articles with the
Except the ones
exception
she
of,
mentioned.
Right, I have the ones, okay, so
6,
6,
16,
16,
24,
24, and
25.
25.
in effect, we got two we're not recommending, and we got two we've put on hold till tomorrow night.
Okay.
And you second that?
Yep.
Any further discussion?
One last thing, I'm sorry, and then I'll stop. Are we posting these on the paper version of the warrant to be handed out at town meeting, what your recommendations are, or you're just gonna share them at the meeting?
We'll share them at the meeting.
I know the finance committee though, don't they?
They have to
But
make
It's
a
always the
recommendation.
FinCom.
They make it.
Oh, no, let's try to get them on paper, because one year when we started this Board of FinCom used to do the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then we slowly took some of the budget back, and now we have the whole budget back.
They're gonna be called on to make recommendations.
Correct.
They're gonna have to make them at the
But we
meeting.
have been putting the Board of Selectmen recommendations on the actual warrant. We did it for the annual last year, which I really liked,
And I
that went
think-
to every
And I think the
household.
townspeople appreciate
Yeah.
that too.
They
Let's,
wanna
you know,
see
what-
where the board
where the board is.
stands. They can't come to every
And
meeting, they
it's
can't
helpful
watch.
as well, because you have, it's not a tradition, because it's not long enough, but you really kind of, if something comes to you from a department, you tend to put it on the, not always, but you tend to put it on the warrant for the people to weigh in on anyway, so.
Any further discussion? I do want to make a comment on the select board versus the board of selectmen. I'm okay, as everybody probably knows, I want it to be a warrant article period, and not to be a straw vote going on the next ballot, whatever. I'm okay with making the motion. I don't want to be hanging out there, nobody's making a second, so since it was, one of you made the motion, one of you seconded that it'd be a straw vote, are we gonna be able to have somebody to second? I don't mind making the motion.
Yep, I'll
I'll
second
argue
it.
my position, but
I'm
I
sure
just wanna make,
it was Selectman Goulart, so
doesn't mean you're
I'm sure
necessarily
she-
voting in favor of it.
Understand.
Or, I'm just asking that it be put on the ballot and let the people, as was
That it be
suggested.
put on the floor
So-
for action.
I'm glad
Right,
you,
and then, if approved, that I'm gonna be arguing that it should be approved and it should go on the ballot for the annual town
Well,
election.
that's the next motion. If this gets a majority vote,
the charter.
it will automatically, then the next motion will be
The home rule charter.
if Article 28, no, if Article 27 gets a majority yes vote, Article 28 has to be acted on.
Right.
If Article
Article
27
27
does
doesn't.
not get
Article-
a majority
Article
vote,
28 won't happen.
28 won't
Won't
come
happen.
up.
Understood. I just wanted to say that when I voted that meeting where we were gonna decide what went on the warrant, I was voting as a selectman because we make the warrant, okay? Full disclosure to the public, when I go to the town meeting, I'm gonna be voting on base what I think is best for the town, and I am gonna vote for this name change, so don't be surprised. And that's that.
And what I will say, since it was me that was looking for the compromise, had we not done what I suggested, this thing would have died, because it would have been illegal even if it passed. So the procedure that I was pushing for has a chance of going somewhere now. Because Sue found out there are these other steps that you have to do, so.
I do appreciate you seeking out a compromise on this. I may not have expressed it at that meeting.
I still don't support it, but if it,
No,
You
but
didn't, Mr.
I get it, and I will probably continue to call you select woman and not select man.
I still don't support it, but if it passes, it passes. But I really felt strongly, the public needs to speak up. Tell us what you think, so they get an opportunity.
So before we vote on it, I saw a hand raised.
Can I just ask, so if this is raised on the floor at town meeting, will it then change, or is it going to a ballot still?
Has-
Because the law requires it.
No, explain from the beginning, Mr.
If a majority of the people vote to change the name to Select Board, okay, the next step is, the next article has to be also voted yes, which would then get it placed on the election ballot in April.
Then I don't,
Hold on, so it's a home
I
rule
don't believe that
petition.
that's-
So this happened because as a compromise, to put this item to be discussed at town meeting, they went with the non-binding referendum
Instead of a warrant
instead of a
article.
warrant article. So other communities have been passing a warrant article, changing their bylaws, and the AG's office is like, okay, all set. When we went to a non-binding referendum, we found out through state ethics that they're like, oh, hey, that's actually not how you do it, and it's illegal, and it's not effective. That's a big deal, because you have to cede the authority to a newly named board. So we went through the home rule petition route, which is that second article, that's a home rule. That has to go through the legislature. So if that passes, the next day, we send it up to Pat Haddad or Mark Pacheco, and they submit it through, or they send it through the legislature, and it follows the course there.
So let me ask this, because now I'm curious. So if the board had put a warrant article, would we have also still needed the home rule?
Technically, yes.
Okay.
We didn't find that out. We sought counsel through the AG's office, and they were like, yeah, it's fine, do this. State
the name-
elections, because it needed to go on a ballot, and we asked for clarification, we found that actually, technically, all those other ones aren't really, but they're not pushing it. But we're gonna do it the right way, because
But
that's
to
what I
answer
do.
the question,
So-
the name would have been changed if the warrant article and the home rule,
Passed at a meeting.
at the
At a
town
town
meeting.
meeting.
It would have gone up to the AG's office like a bylaw change, because we have to
Correct, and
change
then
our
they would have
bylaw.
signed
And they
off
would have
on it.
signed off
Okay.
on it,
Would not
yeah.
have been on the
So
next
yes,
town
that
election.
Correct,
town
would
meeting
not have
would
been on a
changed the
ballot.
The
name.
state election commission said it could go on the ballot, but we're opting to go home rule. Isn't that correct?
You do both.
Yeah, that was.
That's
my
what they said.
understanding.
They said you can't put it on the ballot until it has to be a home rule. That's why the home rule came into play. And I asked
So
her
are
to
you
be,
telling me it's gonna, if the legislature approves it as a home rule, we still have to vote on it, on a
Yes.
ballot?
on a ballot.
I knew there was a ballot thing in there
Yeah,
somewhere.
there's both.
Yeah,
It's complicated.
the
Well,
annual,
and
I know
also-
that, well, that was my
Yeah,
question,
but we're
was.
voting on it because the way it's worded, that it's not a,
Yeah,
it's
it
a
says to be
non-binding.
a
If it was
non-binding
binding,
referendum.
It would not have gone on the ballot, am I correct?
Can you repeat that question?
If it was voted on as a straight warrant and it was binding at the
Oh,
special
if
town
you
meeting,
just did, it, yeah,
it
we
would
would
not
have
have gone
processed,
on.
because we would have followed the process that the AG's office signed off on, which is, hey, we accepted this, we're gonna change all of our bylaws, here's our vote, here's our certified vote, and we would have walked away, because we wouldn't have been informed that the home rule was required.
But,
There's two entities at
Yeah,
the
but
state
if
saying
Sue-
different things.
but my point
Shocking.
is, if Sue had looked into it, she still would have gotten the same answer.
She,
If it passed at the, of a meeting
I
Monday
don't believe
night.
she would have gotten the same answer, because I looked at this and I said, Sue, I originally thought it was supposed to be a home rule, because I was shocked that other communities hadn't done it. So I said, hey, can you call the AG's office and just verify that this doesn't have to be a home rule? And they said that it was fine, that that's the process. You accept it, you change your bylaws, la-di-da, you're all set. When she called, after seeing our meeting, state elections had a different story, and, if.
Because it was non-binding.
Because it was, no, they're saying that regardless of you changing this name, you have to do the home rule petition. But we would not have been aware of this fact because we sought counsel through the AG's office, and they're not telling people that. And
You found out through the state, I feel like I can finish this.
we found out because we asked about a ballot.
Told you you needed.
Yes, and they said it's actually not legal what they're doing. You actually have to do it, through a home rule. We're not pushing it, but we flagged it. We told them what we were doing.
Okay, so
we have to do it.
ironically enough, let's button this up. So ironically enough, by doing the straw poll and not the warrant article, we stumbled upon the real way to do it.
Yes. Yes.
Genius.
And one of the things that we said was, there may be communities out there that have made the change, that in effect, it's not legal, but we're not getting into that.
And there are, and there
We're
are.
not getting into
a lot of
I
them.
know of a select board that actually voted just at a meeting to change it to the select
Walpole
board.
just did it.
Yeah, but that's. a-
So if they just voted, so I wanted just the public to know, if they just voted to do it here, none of the authority that's given to boards of selectmen through the Massachusetts Constitution and all of our lovely laws would actually be given with the select board that these people just voted. So, not these people, but whatever town that was. So any decision they made would be null and void by a very crafty lawyer. So that's why we do it the right way, because we're not gonna deal with litigation.
One more question.
Yep.
On that. So could a resident then get up, I don't even know if you're gonna be able to answer this, and motion to make it a binding?
Like a warrant article.
Yes, to then
To see
bypass that, because, I mean.
Actually, I
this is
don't
just
think so.
my opinion, but it just seems like an awful lot of hoops to get something that, to me, is, simple.
It doesn't matter, cause even if they vote, regardless, it has to go to home rule, regardless.
So you
That's
have
what
to-
ethics was saying. No, we don't have to change the name. They're asking to change the name. So what is this, Article 27? if that passes, even if it said non-binding referendum, the actual steps to do this and to actually transfer power, because legally vested power is with Board of Selectmen, to transfer it to something different, they could be called whatever, but to transfer it to something different, you have to do home rule, which
So-
was actually my gut reaction, so, I mean, it makes sense to
So
me.
can I
but
ask
I've-
you another question? I
Hey,
feel
it's like a
you're
pop
done.
quiz,
I
and
feel
it's
like you're
fun.
done with me.
I'm not done with you.
No, but
There's a
to
lot of
your,
confusion around this, and I
correct.
would like it to be cleared up
To
for
your-
people who are going.
Is it getting clear through me or no?
I think it is,
Okay.
but I think that people don't understand, like, oh, I don't need to show up because it's just gonna get on the ballot anyway, only
Yeah.
if. it's
Only
on.
if this
It's
is,
Only if it
approved,
passes.
yeah.
I think there needs
So-
to be some clarity around how this is
So
all
let me-
gonna
yeah,
go.
you
I
asked your
wanted to,
question.
yeah, and it's sort of piggybacking off Mrs. Quinn's point. So, let's say we get to the end of the meeting, and you know there's that part where like
Oh,
you can bring up
yes.
articles. So is it possible someone on the floor could motion to change the name of board to the Board of Selectmen, that gets acted on, and then after that, let's say it gets approved. Don't get excited. It gets approved, right? Can someone go back to the home rule petition article and bring that up and pass that? Because that would satisfy everything.
So if you go through a town meeting and everything's great and everything is voted favorably, before that meeting adjourns, I don't like this because it's sneaky, but
Everyone
before
knows,
that,
though.
before that meeting is adjourned,
Yeah.
somebody can say, I move to reconsider article whatever. And then you have a whole other conversation. Now, this is why you never leave town meeting early.
Correct.
Because if you voted it and it was up, it might not stay up. So you stay to the end to make sure that your vote,
I'm literally the last person that leave. No, I'm just kidding.
well, now you have to be.
I let everyone
But you
go
wanna
first.
stay, because there is that threat, I guess, out there, that the risk that, you know, people who could plan that they don't like it, they can come back, request to rehear the.
Band with 3 friends.
And, you
Yeah,
know, and that's
no.
why numbers at town meeting matter. That's really why
I would
numbers at town
also
meeting.
say that because it's advertised on the warrant as non-binding,
You can't
I don't
change
see
it.
the town
Correct.
town moderator
Yeah,
allowing that change.
yeah, he wouldn't.
How does it benefit anything,
What do you mean?
What?
The name?
the change?
The arguments are, well, Mr. Selectman Pacheco?
Sure, so when, I'll go through the history again. So back in 1712, when the town was formed, 1712, we had a Board of Selectmen. They were picked by white males who were Protestant and landowners. So it was a very limited group. Many of us in this room here would not have been able to have any input on that. So things have changed. In 1920, fortunately, the Congress passed the 19th Amendment, allowing women to vote, so things have changed. I personally think that we should not be a Board of Selectmen. We should be a Select Board. Board of Selectmen is specific, as far as I'm concerned, for men. We don't have policemen, we have police officers now. We don't have firemen, we have firefighters. So we've changed a lot of stuff in town. And I just think, so that this board represents everybody, it should become the Select Board. 84 towns, I saw something today that says 90-some towns, but 84 towns, I'm not sure if they've done it all legally, but 84 towns
Haven't.
have changed it to, I know some haven't, changed it to Select Board, which I'm strongly in favor of. Not everybody on the board agrees with that, but that's my personal opinion. I was the one that asked that this be put on as a warrant. I wanted it to be an up and down vote. Already the people in town think we're spending too much time on this, but like I've said before, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We've got a lot of things going on. This isn't the only thing that we're talking about right now, so.
I get that, I mean, as a female, I'm fine with the name, I don't care if it says so.
Equal time, I'm I should have been the person that raised the issue.
Yeah,
I consider it to be a very historic title. I consider it to be generic. It goes back prior to the founding of this town. It's in the state constitution. And probably you could trace it back to Mayflower Compact, whatever. This is unique to New England. They don't have selectmen, select boards, select persons outside of New England. It's really a New England thing. And in the rest of the county government is very strong in other parts of the county. But the other thing too is, I don't consider it to be,
Prohibitive.
it doesn't hamper me from doing anything. We've only had 3, but by the same token, I just feel that it's such an honor. You know, I think there are certain times when political correctness goes too far. There is concern about the fact that in academia, there are bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, and doctorates. Well, we all know that there are terms for those that are female or feminine, and I don't see anybody making changes in those degrees. And we all recognize that a bachelor's could be held by male, female, same thing, masters. And again, the reason this is here is because when the vote was called to put it on the warrant, the vote was 2-1. I'm the one who came up with the compromise and said, you know, you feel strongly about this, let's do it as a non-binding referendum, because that way we can find out how the people feel. So that's the reason I did it.
Yeah, either way, we'd find out.
There's more reasons to charge, you know, to me, there's nothing wrong with it.
It's not about being politically correct. I've said this a dozen times. It's about being correct. We are not a board of selectmen.
No, you're not.
Somebody get up at that meeting and say, I want to change the name to the Board of Selectwomen, and we'll see how quickly that gets defeated.
I wouldn't be offended.
The board.
And I would
well,
make
I
that
would
as
be.
the only
I would be.
female member.
I would be. So, and I bet you majority of the town would oppose that.
And
So.
I applaud you for that as the chairman. I'm just saying, as a female in the town of Dayton,
Sure.
it's just one more long process of change that, why?
It's not a long process, but anyway, let's get back to, I asked that question about that, so we're gonna get somebody to say.
Okay, did
Yeah, I
we-
appreciate
did
it.
we?
We haven't voted yet.
Oh, but we got the motion.
Yeah.
Okay.
We were still in discussion. Is there
Okay.
any further discussion? Please, no.
What did he say, please no? You don't have to allow it. Yeah.
Don't edit that out, Cable. That was a good one.
The day it will happen. It's just the way the world goes.
So
but-
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose, objections, abstentions, the ayes have it.
Before we move on,
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, I did just want to say, this board obviously didn't agree on it being a warrant article, but I still respect someone who does something out of principle and is not concerned with, you know, what every single person might think. So I really respect that. I just wanted you to know
I do
that.
too.
Thank you.
I'll live with whatever title they
No,
come
you're
up
the
with.
same way, so I just,
Somebody-
I
I
was
said this-
specifically talking about
When I was first elected and somebody said select man, select woman, I said, well, how about Madam Selectman? That kind of combines it all. It's not a problem, but anyhow.
So the next agenda item is Selectmen's reports, update on a 5-year plan initiative. I've given you copies, or you have copies of my 5-year plan. So this is, I believe, could this be our third update on the 5-year plan?
I thought we were gonna do this for the 13th.
No.
No.
Because, yes,
We-
because we were supposed to do it before, and what I told my 2 department heads, wait till after town meeting, because you've got some things on your list that we gotta see what happens at town meeting, because if you've asked for something and you don't get it, it goes back on the list. If
Actually,
you
that
get
makes
it,
sense.
it's coming off the list. So I'm gonna have it for the 13th.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm okay with that. If you remember, there was one time that I had asked that it be continued, so
Yeah,
I'm not-
I didn't write anything down
Yeah.
the last one,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
thank God for
So-
you this time.
I'll entertain a motion then to continue this agenda item to the November 13th.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstention, the ayes have it.
We don't want to share our good news.
No correspondence, no acknowledgements, and
Oh, under selectmen's reports, are you going to talk about what you did Saturday?
Oh, yes, Mr. Chairman.
All the events. I guess we covered them all between everything that was going on. Do you want to start?
are you talking about the food bank?
All the things that went on the 19th that,
We had a lot of stuff. Unfortunately, I did not make it to Bristol Aggie, but I did participate in the food bank. I did participate in Stuff the Bus, and I did come back, and all the kids were great, by the way. The bus came back over here. It was actually a bus, and they all came back with all these bags, and there were 3 helpers there, not counting the kids, and we weren't allowed to help the kids carrying the stuff, and some of the stuff was pretty heavy. I did assist somebody when nobody was looking, but we got a lot of stuff for the food bank, and I really appreciate the Daisy Troop for supporting the food bank, so.
was it pumpkin carving day?
Sunday
The
was
20th, yeah.
pumpkin carving day.
The painting party.
Right,
Painting party.
my
Yep.
wife and I helped set up and participated in the pumpkin carving. I got to ride on the hay ride. It was actually straw, so it was a straw ride. To pick up the pumpkins and bring the kids back. And I shared that with Tim Rhines,
Oh,
doing that. And
So-
I believe Heidi participated in that too.
yeah, I saw
Heidi-
that. That's
Heidi was there as
fabulous.
well as her husband.
Can't give up the pumpkin painting party.
Can't give up the And it was maybe about 125 kids that came to that. So
There
it
were
was-
that many?
Yeah, so.
Oh, that's
There
good.
weren't
I know there
that
was some
many
extra
the
pumpkins,
last
and
year I went.
when I went by the police station, I saw pumpkins in front of the police station. Do we know if those are the pumpkins?
I have
There
no
was,
idea.
there's
Were
pumpkins
they
on,
painted?
on
They've
every
also
granite.
got,
Were they painted?
No.
they've got chrysanthemums. It really looks pretty. I wondered if it was the garden club. They've got chrysanthemums and pumpkins along the police station. It really looks nice.
I know there was leftover pumpkins. I saw them downstairs. I think that's probably where those pumpkins were.
I'm
He's got
wondering if it's
plans for
actually the
those pumpkins.
landscaper.
Was that place?
It might be the landscaper.
Oh,
Still,
the
it's
garden
fit-
club?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know, but it was pretty.
Mrs. Gulak.
Nobody's claiming them. I'm making
I
pumpkins.
went to-
Anonymous benefactor.
Yeah.
Mrs. Gulak.
The Great Pumpkin, right?
Yeah.
Charlie Brown. On the 19th, I went to the Aggie School Open House. I left there and went to the Bristol Plymouth Open House, and I left there and went to the meeting. Senator Pacheco had a meeting at the Bay State College up in the industrial park, and the program was about climate change, and the main speakers were from the Sierra Club. And they talked about some of the important things that are happening. They talked about legislation, they talked about changes, they actually got into a discussion of aggregation of fuel, and it was interesting because we're already in that.
Yeah.
And they weren't aware of the MMA program that we're waiting on, with Charlotte. But that was a very interesting meeting, and it was well-attended. And there was somebody there from New Bedford who happens to sit on the same committee at MMA that I do. So that was interesting.
Fabulous.
I think we covered everything.
No correspondence, no acknowledgement, minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept for review the minutes of the regular Board of Selectmen's meeting of October 9th, 2019.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the minutes of the regular Board of Selectmen's meeting of September 25th, 2019.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it.
I do want to acknowledge, Mr. Chairman, Mrs. Brady has been doing awesome, putting all the minutes on the website and keeping everything up to date, so we appreciate it. I know it's tough keeping up with everything, but you do it great, and we appreciate it.
Thank you, Karen. Announcement, as you probably already know from this conversation we just had, it's a special town meeting will be held on October 28, 2019 at 7 p.m. at the Dayton Middle School Auditorium. And I hope the discussion we had, especially on the Board of Selectmen versus Select Board, brings a lot of people out to vote on all the warrant articles. So hopefully we'll have a good turnout. We don't normally have good turnouts for these meetings.
Is this for financial information, or what is that meeting for?
It's to vote on all the warrants that we just discussed that are,
Okay.
I believe they're on our website and they've been published. A representative from the Census
Middle
Bureau.
school. I'm sorry, Dayton Middle School.
Oh, on center, off center.
A representative from the Census Bureau will be at the Dayton Public Library recruiting census takers on the following dates and times. October 28th from 10 to 1 p.m. For more information, call 1-855-562-2020 or apply online at www.2020census.gov/jobs. The Dayton Historical Society, and I am a member of the Dayton Historical Society. I'm an officer of the Dayton Historical Society, so I want to mention that as I read the announcement. None of the officers or members get paid anything. It's a complete volunteer group, nonprofit group. The Dayton Historical Society is hosting a psychic fair and craft sale on Saturday, October 26, 2019, from 10 to 5 p.m. at the Old Town Hall, which is right next door, 1111 Somerset Avenue. To reserve a space, call Patty at 508-436-3105. The Sullivan Family Dental, and they do this every year, is holding its annual Sweet Swap November 1st through November 8th. Swap your unopened Halloween candy in exchange for goodie bags and chances to win some, I almost thought that said some coal. Going back to my when I was looking at my stocking, Christmas time. Cool prizes, not coal prizes, cool prizes.
C-O-A-L, cool?
Yeah, cool, when I was. Veterans Day.
Yes.
Veteran Day breakfast will be held on Saturday, November 9, 2019 at 9 a.m. at West Dayton Congregational Church, 2767 Horton Street. Please call 508-669-4524 to register. All veterans in town can bring a guest also to this breakfast, and I would encourage all the veterans to come to this breakfast. It's an annual event that our veteran agent puts on. Primetime Adult Care is in need of clients. If anyone knows someone who would benefit from meeting new friends, trying new experiences, and staying active, please call Primetime at 508-669-6272. Item number 15, approval of warrants.
Just to remind you, asked about finance. Tomorrow night, 6:30, here, Finance Committee is meeting. We will be here tomorrow night. Finance Committee will act on the warrant and make their recommendations. 6:30 Monday night, prior to the town meeting, Finance Committee will probably meet again if they have anything hanging, and we're gonna be available also in case there's anything we have to act on. But those are open and public meetings. No, Monday night, middle school. Tomorrow night, here. Okay? Mr. Chairman,
We'll get you to the right place.
I move that warrant 16A-20 in the amount of $99,847.31 payroll. 16B-20 in the amount of $123,434.25. Accounts payable dated October 16th be approved.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I move that warrant 17A-20 in the amount of $94,849.19 payroll. Warrant 17B-20 in the amount of $538,706.69, and warrant 17C-20 in the amount of $159.69, last two being accounts payable dated October 23rd, be approved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Public input. Now's your chance.
I'm gonna be brief, and I don't even know if, this is worth it, but I'm gonna give it a whirl. I'm just here as a resident and a mom of two kids in the Dayton School District. I am urging any residents that are coming to town meeting to please support Article 8, which is, a motion that will advocate and support a handicap ramp being installed at the DES campus for their outdoor greenhouse classroom. I can't urge the public enough to support this. The motion is being made for $7,500 to be moved out of free cash. However, Ashley Fullen, Dayton Elementary School's vice principal, has applied for a grant as well. This was kind of like a loophole. Again, I'm speaking for myself.
Don't call it a loophole.
Well, it was like a loophole.
Plan
like,
B
what
and
if we
plan
don't
A.
get the
Yeah,
grant? What do we
plans.
do? Well, you know what? This is what this town does. We support what's right.
Plans.
So, in the event that we get the grant, great. It's gonna go back into the general fund. It's a no-brainer for me as a mother. These kids are amazing. They should be afforded the luxury that every child has. And this new greenhouse outdoor classroom is amazing. And I just want to urge the Board of Selectmen and everyone who's voting to support Article 8.
So the board did support this.
Yes.
Earlier. You had alluded earlier, Selectman Goulart, to projects that we do as selectmen. This was something that I was fortunate enough as a member of the Agricultural Commission to assist in the early stages, Mrs. Fullen getting in contact with certain people, not just for the greenhouse construction, which is a miracle they did that, but also for the ramp as well. So I think we'll all be supporting it.
We've just been trying to be very vocal just in town, on social media. Again, it's getting the awareness out there. If anyone's watching tonight, all articles are important, but we really need to rally here and do what's right for the kids at DES too.
Thank you.
I agree.
I don't want to open up a can of worms, but since this is public input, has the traffic management at the schools gotten better?
We're gonna need the
Good question.
honest
Good question.
Honest response. As a parent who
As a parent,
drops
who
off,
dropped
correct.
off, and again, I'm just speaking for myself, and this is no reflection of the staff at Dayton Elementary School, because they do a wonderful job trying to get these kids in and out of that building safe. No, it's not better, in my opinion. It is absolutely a cluster. Do we see a light at the end of the tunnel? No, because, I mean, we don't want to go on there, but look at this crisis we're in as a school district. I hope it gets solved. I hope we can expand the parking lot. Great. I don't see, I mean, again, we have members of staff doing their best, but people are still coming in fast. We have pre-K drop-off and regular drop-off coinciding. People are coming out. I mean, they're doing their best. Again, we haven't hit winter yet.
Pre-K drop-off and regular drop-off for everybody else are at the same time?
I believe so, because you have to drive through the line. So when we all line up for regular K through 4 drop-off, you go right to the gymnasium doors. Pre-K now is where the modulars are.
Yep.
So you have to get through that line. And there is a faculty member there doing his best. Mr. Badger, if you're watching, you're awesome. However, he's not a traffic cop. And people don't pay attention. There was a fender bender with the first or second week of school. A car collided with another car. Again, this is just my opinion. I don't represent the school. I'm not trying to discount anyone or what they're trying to do there to keep our kids safe, because they do a great job. But no, it needs to be dealt with amongst, you know, a laundry list of other things.
So
Are we gonna get anywhere? Who knows?
Well, we're halfway, I guess. We finally got that, so now that we have a new school business manager in place, it's been able to roll a little bit more quickly, but we've got the engineering team linked up, and they have mapped out what would be taken care of, and how it would be mapped out, and so now there's some wetlands in the area, so it does need to go before conservation, I believe, but we were waiting for the engineering stuff to get on board and lined up for quite some time, but that has been done, so.
Well, I'm
That's
certainly,
the school's responsibility?
Right, they are, Mr. Ferry and Mr. Aggie are, from our side, are assisting and helping out as best they can, as they normally do. And then the school is supposed to pay for that, that's all good.
Okay.
well, I'm certainly not making excuses, because safety is always should be the main focus, and it is, at least from this board's perspective. But what I will say is, when you have uncertainty during a budget process, the results are sort of like a ripple in the water, where the business manager retired, Mr. Nappy, who was the facilities manager, and I know you know this because you follow everything, that position was not funded. And so they were working on the plans with what I will call the town's delegation, Mr. Ferry and Mr. Aggie. So I think that has also been an impediment to the ability of everyone to get together and formulate a plan and then implement the plan. So I hope that they will.
And
It
again,
sounds
I
like
don't
they've
wanna-
at least come together.
We've got
so.
a-
I have a question, and again, we might not have the answer, but, so when that land was donated to the town?
No,
No.
we purchased, it was purchased.
You purchased.
So it was purchased,
Yeah.
so like as an engineering study didn't happen when it was purchased, you kind of just purchased it and then it's been sitting?
It was never like, it wasn't used, so there was no, I guess,
Because I know
need
there
to
is
do
like
a study.
paved area.
Yeah, it was a
when you
house,
come
there was a
in.
ranch house there with a little garage.
Correct.
And the person that lived there passed away, and she donated it to the novitiate, the Odor up on Elm Street. They put it on the market, but they approached us, and we purchased it from them. And all we did was take the building down, and we purchased it because the school department felt it abutted the property. It was Mr. Jefferson that mentioned this. It abutted the property and would be good for future expansion. So we bought it, and we've been holding it, and so it's ours.
Right.
I think part of the problem, to your point, and maybe not a problem, I don't want to use that word, part of the issue has been that perhaps because nothing was done with that parcel of land, the school district put the solar canopies and bolted them into the ground.
Yeah.
And I think that probably has also, because those are now part of the land, essentially, they're bolted.
Well, that also now needs to just be a parking lot, because it's not
Cor-
too much developing.
Correct, but that would have could have been, I should say, and I'm no engineer, could have been a good way to try to alleviate some of the traffic issues with a one-way in, one-way out situation.
And again, like I just said, we haven't come into winter yet. Snow removal, snowbanks, stacking up, all of those things come into play. So last year we had a very mild winter. You know, these are just things, again, that we need to continue to be proactive about instead of waiting for something really horrible to happen. On that note, I don't know, where are we with like the town? I know I heard talk of like the Center Street sidewalk project and that maybe that would disrupt that from happening if we couldn't make a decision on what we would do there. Is that still gonna move forward? Because
Yes.
then
We applied for Complete Streets as a program through Mass DOT. It's how sidewalks are getting funded these days. So that's our number one, number one priority for the town. We've designated that as such. It's at the Center Street, Somerset Avenue, intersection improvements and sidewalks. So Complete Streets are all about completing the street to accommodate bicyclists and pedestrians and cars safely. And so that's number one. So we applied for that. It was due October 1st, and we just have to wait. Also on this warrant is $28,000. Small sum. It's not going to make miles of sidewalks, but it helps us. It's seed money that we can show Mass DOT that we're putting our money where our mouth is. We care about this project, and we have some funds to send to take care of it. So we're asking the public for that as well.
That sidewalk will be on the south side, and it will go up as far as, it'll go as far from 138, it'll go to Stonegate Landing, approximately.
Okay.
So it'll catch the schools.
Yep.
And in addition to what Mrs. Aaronstein just said, that's on the warrant, a few years ago, the town approved $160,000 toward this. That helped pay for the layout, engineering, and the appraisals. So we've got this request out, grant money. After the Miller's Lane, we're talking to them right now because that's critical because of the ice. But the next step is we will be talking to the property owners because we have money to pay for the easements we need. And then she's talking additional funds that would be construction money.
So are you asking the question, are we gonna put sidewalks in and then we're gonna have to take them out because?
Well, that's my concern. It's
right.
like, if we can't get anything moving with this parking lot issue and, getting in and out of that entrance to the campus alone when people are leaving with a bus, it's tight. So I don't even know if you put a sidewalk in on that side and then they expand this or expand the entry road.
So
You then have to rip the sidewalk.
No. And where Mr. Ferry, he knows that project, and he knows we applied for Complete Streets, and he knows that everything that happens with the school and Complete Streets are probably going to culminate at the same time, so we'll be able to execute at the same time.
I also believe, other than that, if you forget about that house lot we bought, the town owns land more down towards the junior high that actually goes out to Center Street. That was there before we bought that piece of property. And that's part of this proposed second exit driveway, and Mr. Ferry knows about that.
Yeah, I mean, like, I know things aren't gonna happen overnight, but again, I will be the squeaky wheel. It needs to happen. It needs to happen.
Well, I think,
And I know you guys are so limited too. I mean, this is not a decision that.
well, it's like, it's done
But
by
it's
the school
frustrating.
district. We have people from the town side who are helping, trying to bring this to fruition. What I think we should do, so that this doesn't get lost, is, so first of all, if we're gonna apply for this grant through Complete Streets to extend the sidewalk down Center Street, I'm pretty sure we could probably get the traffic situation alleviated before that. We don't have to apply for a grant for that.
For the traffic? No, that's
For-
already
for the-
up and running. That's happening. That's
No,
just-
I'm sorry, I should have been more clear. For the parking situation at Dayton Elementary School, Dayton Middle School.
Expanding parking?
Yeah.
I don't think
We
do.
wouldn't be privy to that.
No, but what I'm saying is.
I'm sorry.
No, but what I'm saying is, they're not applying for a grant to help with that
No.
situation. They already have some sort of funds that they're
Right,
using
correct,
already, right?
correct,
Okay.
correct.
So complete streets should happen after, so that shouldn't really be an issue. Why don't we always designate someone from the board to be sort of like, and again, this is a school issue, so we can't really do anything. Maybe we could have someone be like a liaison who can keep on top of it, because as of right now, it's just been you, and you have a million balls in the air. Would you feel comfortable having a member of the board serve as sort of like a conduit of information, so that this should be done before next school year? Like, that's reasonable in my opinion. This has already been a year and a
It's
half.
supposed to have done.
It's already been
If
a,
it was up to us, let me tell you, it would be done. If it
but
was
it's
up to
already been a
taxpayers,
year
then
and a
it would
half.
be done.
It's already
But
been
we
a
are
year
at
and a
the
half.
mercy of this school
Next
district.
year will have been 3 years. So that should be the deadline. Like, we should set some sort of like, okay, we can get this done by the next time school rolls around. So I'd be happy to do it. I don't know if you would or you would. We need to have some sort of information flow so that from our end, we can apply pressure. Because I hear about this all the time, not from just you, Mrs. Quinn, but from other parents who have seen unseemly situations in the parking lot.
It makes you frustrated, especially, there are little people. They can't see over these big SUVs, and when you're coming in and out of a parking lot. And again, it is not any disparaging efforts on the faculty at the school are doing the best they can, but they are not traffic cops. I said this last year to this board. They aren't safety officers of the law. Why don't?
But we wouldn't be discussing this if you didn't come in here tonight, is my point. So we shouldn't have to wait till someone, I know we have a million other things to do, so I'm not saying this is the only thing we talk
And
about.
I didn't come here to even talk about that.
Correct.
I'm glad
Well,
you
as I
asked.
said,
No, I'm glad you asked.
That's a
because,
good question.
It is a problem. It's not going away. Growth is coming. Class sizes are bigger. Pre-K is exploding. We need to be proactive, Again, I know it's not something that this board can do anything about, but let me tell you, if a child gets hurt or hit by a car, that's major liability. So can we be proactive before something god-awful happens?
Just one other question. When Rehoboth met with the school committee and they came up with this monetary solution, I'll call it, and that reinstated programs and personnel, was the school facilities manager brought back?
It was funded, I'm sorry.
Is he
It was-
working?
It was funded, but
Back,
he
did
got a
not-
job.
Yeah.
He got a job. So he got a pink slip.
Went elsewhere?
Yeah, he got a pink slip, he got a job.
So they don't
I'm-
have a facilities manager?
I asked
He was
that question
hiring
tonight.
him.
The regional school study committee met tonight. I asked that question tonight. And Jen Duskowski's husband works at the school, and I had asked, is there a facilities manager, an acting facilities manager? And she didn't seem to think so, because what person would apply for the job knowing we don't even have a budget?
So I think it was actually posted.
So I think
but
it's
to your
being handled by our support staff, custodians, and those people at every campus,
But that's why I feel like,
that's why I feel like this is just gonna continue to be,
I didn't realize.
and to your point, because that's why I feel like we should have someone from the board at least be privy to what progress, if any, is being made on it. Because if you didn't come in, we wouldn't have talked about this. We wouldn't have had a
and
discussion
this is
about
not
it.
my opinion.
It would never be on
I
an
want
agenda.
Support Article 8.
So I don't mind doing it also, but I think Mrs. Gorla, who doesn't have anything on her plate, might want to do it. I'm joking.
No, I know that, but you know what? I don't really feel that a member of this board is gonna have any more push with them than the town administrator, because we also have Mr. Ferry and Mr. Aguirre. And from what we heard tonight, they're doing what they have to do. The problem is not on the town side.
Correct.
And I think she has enough power of persuasion. As she said, they just got a new business manager. I'm thinking that person probably also got dumped with facilities management. I'm really disappointed to hear that there's nobody there.
I'm
You
disappointed,
know
but
what,
not
that might
surprised.
be old information. You know more about it than I do. I just, when
Again,
I talked to him,
Don't hold me to it, but
Right.
as far as I'm concerned, nobody seems to know that there's.
I
a
think it
facilities
is the
manager.
custodian stuff. When
It's-
I talked to him, he had posted it because he told me that Mr. Nappy did not return after it was reinstated, which makes perfect sense to me. So I haven't followed up with him. I don't know. All I know is that we had an engineer. So our side, I hate even saying this, our people put the school in touch with, after we all got together and made that plan, put the school in touch with an engineer at this time management change in the school district, once it was resumed, it was one of the first things that Paul Kitchen did. So I thank him for that. He talked about that. He talked about a sidewalk at DMS. And then Ashley Fullen talked about a sidewalk. So you're right, like the staff there is doing its thing and moving stuff along. But as far as I was, like the engineer was working on it and we're just waiting for the drawings back.
Yeah, and I think just.
My issue isn't, it's not about, I know there's nothing we can leverage over them to get them to do it faster. That's not my point. It's about, I have far less things on my plate than the town administrator does. Like, I can put the time
So,
into keeping
I
on
know what we
top
should
of
do.
everything.
Every time we do a 5-year plan, we're gonna update, we're gonna do a DES, what is it called? Driveway update, every single time, so that we know that this is coming, and now Karen and I will just have it on our minds that when we do a 5-year plan update, that includes the
But then we're waiting through, what if we come up to our next one, which is in February, I think, if that's quarterly, and someone says, oh, nothing's been done.
No,
Like,
but
we
something
just lost
totally will be
3
done.
months.
They're gonna get the plan. You can't break ground before April anyway, so.
Well, we wanna know what the plan is.
Yeah,
What is
I
the
think
plan?
we're missing the
Yeah.
point. It's not about leverage, it's just about keeping on top of it, because we wouldn't have heard it if someone didn't come in and
And it
express
would
a
be
concern.
really
somebody didn't ask
helpful too, just to.
Somebody didn't ask the question,
have
right.
information come to this side. I mean, as parents, we
That
don't
is true.
really
Sorry,
hear.
Selena.
We're constantly trying
You
to
did
work
open
with
the
the
can.
staff
Yeah.
at DES, but again, I mean, you go to school committee meetings, they're just completely encompassed with this budget. Everything else is being sidelined.
I just
and
feel
that's
like
my
we-
opinion.
Which is understandable, given the whole,
Yeah, but you
the
know
whole
what?
situation.
There are other issues that need to be dealt with.
So,
you know?
If this is
wasn't an
quarterly,
agenda item, so what I would really like to do, I will go and I will call Paul Kitchen tomorrow, and I'll get more of an update about when he expects the engineer to provide that actual plan, and I will get a copy of that plan, and we'll put it on for November 13th, and see if I have the
So,
actual plan.
I think we ought to
I
have a-
know that things are moving here. I can understand I've been in a parent drop-off line with my own kids, and I was horrified, because I was like, oh my God, what do I do, and I'm gonna mess this up. So I can understand that if the path isn't there for you, it can be very horrible and chaotic and terrible. So I get it. But we are very limited, but we are very limited. We don't sign their budgets. We don't force them to pay. We don't force them to hire. We can only do so much, and we are doing what we can. Could it be more? Could I put more pressure on? Absolutely. But as he said, like, we just applied for 3 different grants. Like, I don't know, but I got it.
So
I'll put it
that's
on here.
And I am not coming from a place of this board to put pressure on anybody. I'm just stating as a parent who is there every
Yeah.
5 days a
Yeah.
week.
No, I'm sure it's horrible,
I'm
and you're
not
doing it
gonna
every day.
Sugarcoat it.
But I feel like
and
that
say, yeah, it's better.
conversation was an argument for somebody else with more time to be somewhat involved, so that we don't have to come up 3 months later and be like, yeah, we haven't read the engineer's map, but and then now it's July of 2020 and school's starting in 2 months, and now it's not done again.
I'm gonna ask for a monthly update from the town administrator on this. So each month we
Okay,
will
so-
get a report. Let us know what's going on. So that we don't drop the ball and we're not waiting 3 months. and-
You know what, I'm gonna ask for an update, an agenda item at each meeting. If you have something, it's gonna be there. If you haven't got any, you say,
This I can get.
I don't have anything new for this one, but this is what's in the works. So if we keep this on the agenda bi-weekly or whenever we meet, it's not gonna drop off.
No.
The last time we had this discussion was in the spring, because I was saying, no, I want it done now, and we were thinking it was gonna be done by September.
Thank you.
And then everything,
Right.
And now we're going on another,
And
it's
I
gonna be
didn't
another
think
year.
for a minute it would be done by September, only because we were in
We-
budget crisis.
we appreciate your patience.
So, I mean, and like, I know things aren't gonna happen overnight and there's no magic, but again, we just talked about all the building permits, making revenue for this town. Well, families are moving into those homes and kids are going to these schools. You know, we have to plan accordingly and we need to make sure they're safe. That's it, simple.
the sidewalk project will not be affected by
Yeah.
their action or lack thereof. That's ours, and as Mrs. Aaronstein said, we're waiting for the grant money for construction, but we've got the money to move ahead with all of the things we need, the paperwork and the easements. So, we're gonna do that.
Because that's what all I could think about was you put these sidewalks in and then they decide in a year, oh, we're gonna do the entry, and what a waste
State
of
would
money
never
that
like
would be.
No, Mr. Ferry's very protective.
Yeah,
I was
of-
gonna say, 5 years.
Okay,
5
so-
years, nothing goes in.
I'll entertain a motion that we put this on as an agenda item at each meeting with the understanding that we may not have a report for each meeting.
But until it's
they may not be-
completed, right?
So
Right.
moved.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention?
I'm sorry.
What's that?
We'll take it back.
And about when the department head requests an article to be placed on the warrant, do they supply or provide a justification for it?
Okay, hold on, you should finish
Yeah,
up
let's-
that vote and then,
I think we did vote.
We did
oh, I'm
vote.
sorry, I didn't, okay.
Voting, I think he's started to
Yeah.
speak.
Justification meaning, like, this is why I need it, or this is the cost of it, and here's my proof that it costs this much?
What I got a question about is that the fire department's asking for a truck for $78,000. The highway department is asking for one for $40-some thousand.
Mhm.
And the police department transferred a vehicle to the highway department, which is at the snowplow, and the snowplowing of the fire station should be a priority. You know, what's the difference between $40-some thousand and $78,000? What is it, you need a
I
vehicle
think
that
it's
costs
68.
It's
it is
68,000,
68,
but
yeah.
this request from the fire chief replaces a current vehicle, and it's not only to do snow plowing. It's to do other things and then they plow their own, facility.
It should be.
So they want a vehicle with the capability of holding a snowplow.
But they
That
do
function.
justify, they'll
They do,
say,
they use it.
like for the fire, like I've seen the inventory, like the truck is like from the 80s, like it's,
So
Yeah.
I can see a truck for $40-some thousand, that's reasonable. But for
Well,
$78,000.
there's different equipment. So if you're a
It
fire
has to be
vehicle, it
fitted.
has lights, it has the
Correct.
radio stuff in it, it has all of this special outfitting that goes in,
Oh,
so it's a different function. And it's not a snow plowing truck for the fire department,
And
it's
it-
a truck that is capable of snow plowing because they need that, but
It's
it's not
not-
primarily a snow plow.
to
I'm
your
sorry.
point, Mr. Bajiko, it's not like a truck, they go to Ford and they just like drive the truck off the lot, like you know that. It has to be fitted, it has to be outfitted for the bells and the
That's
whistles.
part of their job, and that should be a priority to keep the fire stations clean. And they have brush trucks and they have a whole bunch of other stuff. And, you know, we're just spending money, it's like, there's talk about a new highway garage. Well, maybe they got too much equipment, maybe they don't need a new highway garage.
They gave stuff for surplus, like they're not
Well,
just
what the other thing
keeping
is
stuff.
that the finance committee has asked all these department heads to have warrants
Mhm.
to go before them, and we may change our opinion based on the conversation that happens tomorrow night.
These are good questions for the meeting Monday night.
Yeah.
Absolutely, because the fire chief will be there, I was just gonna say that, and he'll explain, you know, and he'll probably, I know, you know, he says to me, he can't take the chance that you know, in front of the garage where the fire vehicles are taken is not plowed. He can't take the chance, he's gotta be able to
They
respond.
can't wait,
I mean,
yeah.
they're huge trucks, I get it, but in the event that a fire truck slipped
Or an
and
ambulance.
went down, or an
An
ambulance, that's not a problem we wanna handle, that we wanna be able to respond and get to somebody to save their life. So I, you know, I can kind of put my fire chief hat on and think about it like that.
also have its own plow
and all Yes.
They do?
No.
They transfer vehicles to
They
the
used to.
highway department.
Before they, maybe it's different now, but before they had done their own. But we're so super off topic, and all over.
Are we off topic?
No, we're so off, we made it back on.
I only asked one question.
Yes.
You opened the can of worms tonight.
I said I didn't want to do that, but.
So I'm gonna ask for a motion that we go into executive session. We will not be returning to the public. We will leave after we go into executive session, so.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we enter into executive session under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Number 3, to conduct strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares.
Second.
All
Do
those
you
in-
declare? No.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Roll call.
Aye.
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 Thank you, Cable.
Have a happy Halloween, everyone.